across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Just gone 4 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Well, what a 4 days that was, or is it 5 days since I was here? I left here at 7 o'clock last Wednesday. The world seemed to be in a slightly calmer position. In the last 5 days, Zia Youssef has resigned as the chairman of your Reform UK, saying he can't do it anymore. It's far too stressful for him. Then he's rejoined. That's all happened. We've had a screeching U-turn from the Labour government today. I mean, screeching would be a complete understatement by anybody's standards. The screeching U-turn on winter fuel is... You read the detail to this earlier, by the way. 3/4 of the people, nearly 9 million of the 10 million plus, actually about 12 million, wasn't it, of people who were going to lose it, are now going to be absolutely fine. All that after the Labour Party made a big thing about we've got to save this money. We've got to make sure this black hole that I don't think ever existed, that was there apparently when they took over from the Tory party, it's all a disaster. We've got to save the money, blah, blah, blah. So much to talk about. We can talk about Reform UK and Zia Youssef, but today he's jumped straight back in and gone, we will deport every illegal migrant, one of the party's most senior figures, Zia Youssef, have said today. So he's back with a bang. Now he wants to deport every illegal migrant. The Labour Party, screeching U-turns. They're now going to pay the winter fuel allowance to 9 million people who thought they weren't going to. I mean, there's an extraordinary story on the front of The Sun. Jack Elsom, The Sun's political editor, will be with me in 20 minutes. Insane. Look at this. £4.7 billion migrant hotel bill takes every penny in tax from the number of people who work in a city the size of Manchester. Whatever you think, and I was talking to somebody today on the train about this, people were saying, you know, this whole migrant thing, where is it going to end? I'll tell you where it's going to end. It's going to end with every reasonable man and woman in the United Kingdom who works for a living saying, what the hell am I doing? Why do I bother? Because frankly, look, you can come to this country and get treated better. And for all the bedwetters who attack me on social media, crack on, because I don't give a toss. Here's the thing, right? If we were absolutely and utterly floating with money, yeah, maybe, excuse the pun, but we're not. People are suffering, and we're spending £4.7 billion on migrant hotels. We're giving the Chagos Islands away a £9 billion. We're doing all of this, and yet people who matter have to get on their knees and beg, and it takes the government 12 months to do this screeching U-turn on that. But, ladies and gentlemen, before I tell you how you can be part of this vain attempt at a programme, let's not do anything other than talk about the main news story of the day. I wish I had a fanfare, but there's no Jodie. Greta's boat's been captured by the Israelis. Greta Thunberg, go back to school, you... Anyway, she's the one, you know, she's always jumping up and down. Look at it, Ryan, already, look, flying out like a good one. I know you will. Don't worry about it. Anyway, Greta, she and a bunch of sort of activists jumped on this selfie yacht to go to Israel to stop outside Gaza and go, this is very unfair. The boat's been seized by Israel and they're going to make them watch harrowing footage of those atrocities of October the 7th, which kicked this whole disastrous situation off. And before we get into a huge debate about it, no, again, for all the bedwetters, I don't like seeing what I see in Gaza. I think it's absolutely outrageous. But you will not have me talk about anything other than the fact that Hamas is a vile terrorist organisation that needs to be eradicated from this world. And sometimes when that happens, people and situations happen and people suffer, and it is not nice. But I, as a parent, don't want to see anything that's going on in Gaza. How it's sorted out, I've no idea. But I'll tell you one thing, it ain't going to be sorted out by Greta Thunberg. Listen, welcome to the show. It's a Monday. We've no Jodie, so my microphone's falling out my ear because nobody else knows how to do it. But we've got Harry Potter, ladies and gentlemen. Harry Potter, who looks like Ryan's love child. Ryan's 8'7", he's 8'6". Harry's taking your calls. So when you ring 0344 499 1000, say, do this, Harry Potter. OK, that's what you've got to do. Harry Potter. If you want to send a voice note today, 0344 499 1000. If you're doing a voice note, it'll be to Ryan, say, bet you're glad Kyle gave you the winner of the derby, you bugger. See? All that money, not a penny. Didn't even buy me a chocolate bar. 0344 499 1000. You can text throughout the show, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Please be part of the show, because when you do, it gives me so much more time to work out what's coming next. Right, drive time is on till 7 o'clock, and we'll kick off with the main man who's going to carry this next section, because I am already suffering with my microphone. James Price, former government special advisor. A very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
If you'd have wanted me to have carried this with my usual gusto, you shouldn't have set such an utterly depressing scene. You know, normally you and I are up for the fight on this, but when you see the level of stupidity that this Labour government is wreaking and the havoc that it's causing on this country, a chunk of me just wants to sail away across the Mediterranean Ocean, and I wouldn't care at this point if it's the Israelis or Hamas that take me, because it's almost impossible for it to be more depressing than life in Britain.
But you can't be, my friend, that depressed that you get onto a boat with Greta Thunberg. I mean, it can't be that bad, right?
Well, no, I know the plumbing situation that happens on her boats. I think they have to go into for a number 2 in a bucket, don't they?
Absolutely. Let's talk about this winterfall U-turn. I mean, I've got this joke, and I can do this with you because you're a professional broadcaster, and Denny and I, we were just trying to work out how I could do this, and I'm going to let you fill in the gaps. There are screeching U-turns, and I happened to say to our boss, I was in my driving test once when the examiner said, "Can you make a U-turn?" I said, "I'm not into sheep." That's as far as I can go with that joke. The rest is not broadcastable, but James Price just put his head in his hands, nothing more. Mate, we had this huge announcement. I guess it was sort of back end of summer last year that 10 million pensioners of all levels of income were going to be taken out of this £300 winter fuel allowance. And we all said on this station almost instantly, for God's sake, what are you saying? You're taking one of the most important sections, if you like, of society who have paid their stamp and done their bit, and you're dumping on them. And that will be, in my humble opinion, your poll tax moment. People protested. And it wasn't until the May elections when, frankly, let's be honest, Reform had said we will reimpose this, it'll be back straight away if we get into power, that Labour really worked out that they were taking a pounding, I think, on many fronts, but this was one of them. Today, Richard III, or Rachel Thieves, as she's known to her mates, she confirmed a major U-turn on the government's policy. The Chancellor says that pensioners with an annual income of 35 grand or below will now be eligible. That's 9 million in total. More than 10 million lost the payment worth out. But interestingly, she says that the system's so crap that the people who earn more than 35 will still get it, but they'll have it taken off them. Is it that? I mean, that also rather sums the whole thing up. But, you know, for a party that's only been in power for a year, with this magnificently huge majority, I mean, pig's ear would be an understatement, Jay, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Organising a pee up in a brewery, I managed to self-censor myself there. Also springs to mind, I don't even know where to begin with the shambles of this. There is, of course, the political shambles, the embarrassment at the very start of all of this, where this was a policy that the civil service wanted to get done, and it gave it to every new Conservative chancellor over 14 years. It happened with us in the Treasury when I was there as well. And you just look at it and you go, you know what, I can see the economic merits of this, because it doesn't seem right that people who are not very rich get taxed a little bit more so that money can go to the Mick Jaggers of the world and the super rich old people and all of that. But when you go, right, we need to cut this one particular benefit and conjure up all the images of old people freezing to death in their homes. And I was on talk with, I think it was Kevin O'Sullivan the other week, and someone called in and said they found their friend had frozen to death at home. And it's just a heartbreaking story.
And by the way, let me jump in, and I did hear that call. Let me jump in and also say that Labour's own people, spin doctors, whatever you want to call them, said at the time when this was announced, 4,000 people will lose their lives as a result of this cut. But I want to pick you up on something else. I mean, you pass this off, and for me, this will be like a dog with a bone forever. And I quote, the civil service wanted to do this for years. They're not democratically elected. What right do they have to make decisions, Jay? Seriously.
I'm very glad you asked this particular question. This is my absolute hobby horse, and anybody who wants to read my philosophy MA thesis that I'm genuinely currently writing on this exact topic can come see me in October when hopefully I've got it done. There is no right for them to do this. And the reason why, if people take home one thing today, the reason why everything in Britain is such an utter shambles at the moment is because I think our democracy has been largely subverted by the permanent features of the civil service. These are people who don't ever face any scrutiny. It's very hard to Google their names. It's very hard to do anything about it. And when you're the boss in one of these departments, or you're supposed to be the boss because you got elected as a member of parliament and the prime minister who got you that majority chose you to go there, you've got almost no power over any of these people, and it's the same people. So people might assume that, like in America, there's a big change around of staffing and all the rest of it when a new government comes in. It's not true. When Starmer came in last July, only 200 people across the entirety of the British state changed jobs. It's 100 ministers, 100 MPs, 100 Tories go out, 100 Labour come in, and then 100 special advisors, people like me, who aren't legally even allowed to have any actual executive authority to tell civil servants what to do. All we can do is stand on the sideline and say, please don't sign that, boss. They're lying to you again. Trust me.
But just explain to me, and you've worked in it, because we're getting amazing response already. How have we got to a point, without this, I mean, this is going to be my bugbear all week. You can see that already. How have we got to a point where these career civil servants are almost defining, blocking, encouraging, cajoling elected politicians to do what they think is right? It's like when the Home Office, paid by our taxes, took the Tory government to court about Rwanda. Now, I wasn't a Rwanda fan, but I remember thinking, hold on, you're taking an elected government to court on something... Why do these people have this power? And are reform right? Can this power be stripped away? Because it should be.
It absolutely should be. I do think we should move to a system, in this regard at least, like the system they have in the United States, where you have this sort of transitional period, and you don't necessarily need to do that, but you have political appointees, people who've got actual skin in the game, and they really care about getting the policies that the politicians have been elected to enact by the people in actually getting that to happen. If it doesn't happen for a civil servant, I don't care. There's no skin off their nose. Right, they can just carry on happy as you like. We're not worrying about it at all. And it's only the poor Muggins, who's the member of parliament, who slogged his or her guts out for decades to get that job, who get all the blame for it, when they're the ones who can't actually pull any of the levers. But let me give an example. If you're the Secretary of State for Education, you have 3, maybe 4 at absolute utmost special advisors. They're the people that you can hire and fire. There's 8,500 civil servants in that one department, and you're very, very, very hard-pressed to be able to do it. There are technically ways, and some civil servant might call up and say, well, actually, if you do put in a concerted enough set of complaints, we can probably promote them to some other...
And then you think, and you're going to tell me he wasn't that good a man, I didn't see a problem with him in many instances. Dominic Raab decided to stand up to his department and say, I want it done my way, you're officials, I'm the elected Deputy Prime Minister, and he was pushed out for bullying. That's a fact, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. I think it's outrageous. I think Rishi Sunak lacked the spine to back him, because Sunak was one of these people who wanted the praise, the approbation of all the clever senior civil servants. Oh, did you know that Rishi Sunak's very good at looking at spreadsheets, understanding them, and they'd give him gold stars for this. And Liz Truss, for all her many, many, many failings, and there are many, and she did this in a very bad way, at least started to grasp that this was an issue that needed to be fixed. The person to listen to on this, the Nostradamus of it all, of course, again, to go through unpopular Tories, is Dominic Cummings. But he's dead right on all of this. He's dead right on his prescription, his diagnosis, all of it. And what you need to do is to have some radical taking back of control. And one, I give praise to a Labour person for this, actually. I know we're going slightly off topic here, but Wes Streeting, who is the Health Secretary, abolished this thing called NHS England. I worked in and around Westminster for 15 years. I couldn't tell you on earth what NHS England does differently to the Department for Health or the various hospital trusts. He's got rid of it, and he's taken all of its powers back himself. And if he messes it up, great, we can vote him out of office. But at least he's now got those levers connected to things to try and achieve what he thinks is right.
I want to get a call on. Loads of you responding already. Jay, don't go anywhere. 0344 419 1000. We'll go to Wolverhampton. Stephen, about the civil service. James Price is with me. Shoot.
The people that you're talking about, they can hide within the system because they're all on agencies. My local authority in Wolverhampton has currently announced that most of their employees are now agency staff. So if there's any issue concerning the subject you're talking about, you won't be able to find them because they'll hide it within social media. So you can't take them to task because they just block everything. So...
I tell you, Stephen, really interesting. Stephen, I mean, what does that tell you very quickly? What does that tell you, Jay? I mean, that's another system, but I heard Richard Tice say that if Reform gets elected, they will, from day one, strip back the blob. But the blob seems to have so much control. Love to know your thoughts, by the way. 0344 499 1000. I want to crack on with this. That was the winter fuel U-turn. 2 quick questions on that. 1-word answers. Do you think it will cost somebody their cabinet job, this disastrous U-turn? Do you think Rachel Reeves is a goner?
No.
You don't?
1-word answer, no. I think that she's still the best they've got, which is terrifying in itself. But she's got more private sector experience than the rest of that cabinet put together. And, you know, by the devil you know, I'm afraid.
Reform. Since I finished on Wednesday, Zia Youssef, the chairman, resigned, stopped smiling as a Tory. He said, I can spend my time better. There was 2 days of rancour. Apparently it was social media. It might have been tied into that. Sarah Pochin asking the question about the burqa that Badnoch's come out and said, I agree with. However, 2 days later, he's back. And today, I mean, not only back on the front foot saying that every illegal immigrant in Britain, Zia, you said he quit last week, mass deportations, these people, we won when we win power. So he was the chairman last Wednesday when I spoke to him. He had a spat whether it was about the burqa or not, or tired. Now he's back and now he's talking about mass deportations, which in a way was why I thought Rupert Lowe fell out with the hierarchy, wasn't it?
You're absolutely right. Look, I think I'm with Rupert Lowe on this. People don't remember the former Reform MP who got kicked out of the party because he was coming up with far too many sensible ideas and actually thinking through how you would enact them. Look, as we just heard, I'm in favour of cutting back the blob. I'm in favour of mass deportation of all illegal immigrants and of having a very serious conversation about how we can get rid of people in this country who shouldn't be here, either legally, illegally, people who technically have passports but haven't integrated. That's a really difficult, long, thorny conversation that you can't just hide behind a few slogans in order to do. And if you, as a party, call it teething problems if you want, but if you as a party can't stop arguing publicly amongst yourselves and having an unelected chairman telling the newly elected only woman MP that she's dumb on Twitter and throwing his toys out of the pram, how are you going to take on this enormous administrative state of civil servants and quangos and regulators and all the rest of it that we've just been talking about? They've got to get serious fast.
But I have to say as well, alongside that, and I'm not sticking, I mean, you know, I was a Tory who voted for reform and I don't like the bust-ups there's been and it will lead to questions. But then look what happened in Scotland. I think the British people, whether you like it or not, are so peeved and are at such a point that they will, and I genuinely would want to say this to every politician, I don't think you need to be squeaky clean or perfect or never make a mistake anymore. In fact, I think you might glean a degree of respect if you stood in front of your electorate and went, I'm a human, I've messed up, I've been emotional, I've responded to this, I've got that wrong, but here I am, we're in this, there's ups and downs. It'll be very interesting to see whether the reform juggernaut, which is the best way to describe it, continues. The other thing is, Jay, front the Sun today, Jack Elsom with me very soon. Insane. 4.7 billion migrant hotel bill, which is the annual cost, right, of caring for migrants in hotels. 4.7 billion pounds is the equivalent to the total tax contributions of 582,000 workers. That is the equivalent to the working population of Manchester, James Price. This is beyond... I don't know. We talk about it every day. It is utterly ludicrous, my friend, isn't it?
Yeah, completely right. I'm glad that you've got Jack Elsom coming on. He's a big star in the making, a very nice chap as well.
He is.
It's not a very nice story that we're hearing about. But again, if we're going to fix this, what's Reform's plan to do it, by the way? Because they said it was going to come out by the end of May, and it hasn't done yet because they've all been busy fighting with each other. Look, I like an awful lot of what Reform is saying. I think they're right on all of their targets. But we've got to get serious about what this is going to look like. Because in order to stop this, you've got to have to change fundamentally everything about Britain's relationship with the European Convention on Human Rights. It's not just as simple as a yes or no switch. It's been embedded into lots of our legislation, like Tony Blair's Human Rights Act of 1998. It's been embedded now in, 25 years plus of case law that would have to be amended, and you'd have to do all of this on day one, have the legislation drafted, ram it through the Houses of Parliament, have all the kind of operational strength that you need of police forces and armies and stuff. We've seen what's happening in America with the National Guard and these people rioting and everything, and you're not going to be able to do all those serious plans if you're too busy squabbling. And so my big concern is that, you know, Reform as currently constituted may go and win the next election. It would definitely be better than the Labour Party, but they've promised an awful lot. And if they're not going to be able to deliver because they haven't bothered to do the heavy thinking and think, oh, like Labour thought, well, we'll be fine when we get in.
Take the point.
That's the worst possible outcome of all worlds.
I hope there is going to be meat on the bone. We'll be pushing it. Final thing for you, JP. You're a very busy man, but you're a very wonderful man. And we should take a moment here because it's quite sad. Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg and her mates, they jumped on a selfie yacht. I thought it was quite funny. I said this last Wednesday. They decided to set off from Sicily to go to the sea outside Gaza. It's diesel powered. That's the first hysterical thing, and it's got honestly, mate, it's bloody diesel powered. Selfie yacht. It's been seized by the Israelis, and they're going to force them watching, quite rightly, the harrowing footage of October the 7th attacks. Anti-Israel climate campaigner Greta, 22, was caught attempting to breach a blockade of Gaza aboard the British-flagged Maldine. Israel said, you're supporting a terrorist organisation, we're going to grab you both. Who does this ridiculous 11-year-old think she... I mean, why am I even talking about this? Greta Thunberg. She lives on the Jurassic coast near me in Bournemouth. It's full of fossils. Honestly, it drives me insane, man. What is wrong?
It's absolutely extraordinary. And I said at the top of this that the plumbing on those boats is not very marvellous, and probably not terribly friendly either, to be doing your number twos in a bucket and throwing it over the side of the ocean. And the people of Gaza have suffered an awful lot, just like those wonderful Israelis who were all killed by Hamas. And I don't think either side of them deserve to have to put up with Greta Thunberg on top of all of their other bad luck so far.
I love the way you finished that. James Price, a former government special advisor, my chief of staff, if I understand. Thank you very much indeed. Good man, 4:23. We're live across the United Kingdom. How are you for Monday? I'm up for it today. Ryan is here. Fresh on getting the winner of the derby from me making hundreds of pounds and not even buying me a chocolate biscuit. Harry Potter is in for Jodie. Jodie, where is Jodie? Do you know that she's having her legs waxed? Be a couple of days. Got the strimmers out. I'm joking. She'll be back tomorrow. But Harry Potter, who is as tall as Ryan, I think could be his love child. If you are ringing the show on 0344 499 1000, start like this. Harry Potter. Drive time.
these lawyers' costs are not included in this 4.7 billion, and the 4.7 billion figure, Mike, includes the hotel costs. It also includes the kind of the landlord accommodation that the likes of Serco will pay you 5 years, all your rent, all your kind of utilities and stuff. So it's a staggering amount of money. And as you point out there, so 600,000 people have to get up, go to work every single day, pay their taxes, because they earn on average in the UK it's about £38,000 a year. So obviously you earn that money, the government takes the tax, and you need 600,000 of them to pay the asylum accommodation bill.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
4:27, JK till 7, 0344 419 1000, text to 87222. Hello to Graham, who says, I just hope the Israelis give Greta Thunberg and her other utterly useless idiots vegan sandwiches. Graham's in Bushy, where I was conceived. Greta, honestly, do we have to talk about her? Ridiculous. Jez, you say Greta should go back to school. She's actually 22, but looks 5. Yes, SD, you're right. Jane says, the U-turn on the winter fuel allowance is only because they think the voters will return to them. They won't. I bet Richard III got our winter bills paid for via the taxpayer. This government are vile, and they do not care about our citizens. Good afternoon, Paul in Dorset. Nice plane. Keir Starmer has a huge majority. And we live in a sovereign country. It would be straightforward for them to pass a law to stop the boats. Tell you how I'd do it. It's very simple. Not that I'll ever be Prime Minister. I'd send the Royal Navy into the Channel, and then I would make it less able for people to come here and get everything. It wouldn't be so attractive if you sent them somewhere else and gave them very little. Sorry, don't care if you disagree. Robin Lynn in Ramsden Heath. Yes, Prime Minister, is there any programme I need to watch to know what the blob are like? Spot on. Margaret, why are we giving the migrants all our money, but pensioners like me are left on a trolley in corridors for hours? Can someone ask that idiot Starmer and Yvette Balls when it will stop? I've had enough of this crap government and I'm entitled to my opinion. Margaret's on it, 0344 419 1000. Day one of my next guest's new job. I've taken him from the lower echelons of broadcasting and sort of journalism to the new political editor of The Sun. I'm delighted, and he's talking, and he's got a tie on. Jack Elsom, good afternoon, live from Westminster.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Yes, I thought I'd put a tie on. First day in the job. You know, in the big boy seat now. I've now officially taken over Harry's chair, so I thought I'd steal one of his ties as well.
Good for you. The thing about Harry is, you know, who? That's showbiz. Harry Cole is no longer the political editor of The Sun, and yet he's the person whose name is on this rather impressive headline. Now, as the political editor with some clout, I'd push Cole aside now. This is part of the job. Get off the front page, Harry Cole. You're nothing anymore. What's going on?
Well, Harry will still be front and centre of all of our coverage at The Sun. He was actually working yesterday doing his fantastic column. You can read it on page 10.
It's
whereas
amazing.
I was travelling back from a wedding in Devon, so wasn't very involved yesterday, although I'm now all the way into things, head first, mucking in and cracking the whip, I'd say, as well.
Good man. Britain's annual £4.7 billion cost of housing. It's a great article by Harry and Thomas Gruffy. Housing and caring for migrants in hotels. £4.7 billion is the equivalent, Jack, to the total tax contributions of a city the size of Manchester. We have talked long and hard about migration, illegal migration, legal migration. We've talked about boats, we've talked about lorries, we've talked about gangs, we've talked about the French, we've talked about the Northern... We've talked about everything. I don't know whether politicians are grasping this. This is going to become the only thing that matters to politics and the British public really soon. And Margaret's message says it all. Do the government understand the level of anger that people are feeling? Because it's out there, Jack. It's out there, definitely.
Yeah, and I think the jury's out on that one at the moment. I mean, I think if they did really appreciate the levels of vitriolic rage in the country about this absolutely eye-watering spend on migrant hotels, you think that actually it would put a firework up their backsides and there'd be more of a level of urgency. I don't just say this about the Labour government, by the way. The Tories were just as bad, letting this absolutely balloon out of control. But people are incredibly annoyed about it. We've chatted to a man in Hull on the inside pages 4 and 5 of today's newspaper. He says that he was being made homeless, he was laid off, he's been sofa surfing with friends, And he feels that he's been shoved to the back of the queue because the Royal Hotel in Hull, where he's from, is currently full with lots of small boat migrants.
It's exactly what I've said.
Who are getting a much better treatment.
Locals have been shoved to the back of the queue. Vital services at breaking point. This is see and just go and buy the Sun, Peeps, because there it is on page 4 and 5, and it's absolutely spot on, and it's what we're saying every single day. And Robin Perry wrote that article. It's almost like, I mean, for months up to the last election, I remember us talking and Harry talking, and you were saying to me as political journalists, there doesn't seem that much of an appetite. You know, it's. I remember once somebody said, "Oh, it's okay for the problem to be there because they can blame each other." The fact of the matter is, Jack, this country is skint. The public services are at their lowest ever ebb, and they are being stretched still further by, well, hundreds of thousands of people coming into this country because we are soft and because the pull of the United Kingdom is far greater than anywhere else. And I absolutely will take issue with anybody who says, oh, well, you know, I mean, look, James made the point about reform. You need to fill in the gaps. But somebody has to believe that there has to be somebody who's got the balls to say, we're stopping the boats, we're not going to allow the civil service to run this country, we're going to put our foot down and do what's right by the British people, because it's becoming farcical, man.
Yeah, and if you think about the actual cost of this, you know, today Rachel Reeves is saying that the overall cost of the winter fuel payment from making it universal to now making it means tested is going to be £450 million a year. Now, that is a tenth of what we're currently spending on migrant hotels. It is an absolutely enormous sum going basically going to the wall every single year. Meanwhile, we're being told to tighten our belts and other things. And so I think that there is just an overwhelming sense in this country now, and it has really sort of come to the fore in the last few years or so, that British people are being taken for an absolute ride. We hear it every day from readers, from listeners, from viewers who contact us and say there's this overwhelming feeling of frustration. Legal migration obviously is one thing. Nigel Farage made the point earlier that while potentially legal migration is more of a strain on public services in terms of the sheer numbers, it is illegal migration which really sticks in the craw because there's this sense of unfairness. And every day you see pictures of people coming across the channel, mainly young men, and they go straight into hotels, and British people who are feeling they really are struggling to make ends meet. It just makes their blood boil because they're thinking that actually some people are getting it all and others aren't. And it's something which we're hearing every single day. And
I think you're right. And you used a word there that's spot on, Jack, which is unfairness. And I think, you know, we've always had, haven't we, in this country, and it's really interesting to get the Sun's take on this, because I've always believed that the Sun, and genuinely I mean this, I mean, you speak for the people, right? And here's what I would say to anybody. For years, we sort of were the country that always did the right thing, British way. You know, we're much better off than these poor people will, and that's good. That was great, right? And then I felt like we continued it for years because we're apologising for colonialisation in some people's minds, despite the fact that we actually abolished slavery. Everybody forgets that. But even today, the reason I feel we're at this sort of really a crossroads, if you like, is that we are skint, and not just the man in Hull, but thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people will say, now, normal men and women who just have never had a handout, have never done anything but bring their kids up and go to work and pay their taxes, they feel they're being laughed at by a succession of governments, be they Tory, be they Labour. I don't know about reform. I hope that reform get in and do it. But I'm sick and tired of hearing, well, you know, there's no answer, or the system, you know, we can't do Rwanda because the civil service don't want it. You know, I don't care if this is an unpopular view, not with you, but you know what? For all the criticism of Donald Trump, at least he's got the balls to stand up and say, I'm going to do this for the American people. That's what they elected me for. And if I have to send the National Guard into Los Angeles because a bunch of bedwetters are going, oh, you can't get rid of these migrants, I'm going to do it because I don't care about being unpopular, because that's what I promised you I'd do. And I can see us going that way, Jack. I really can.
And you know what? I think that Britain is a very compassionate country, and we have a long and proud history of looking after people in need, vulnerable people. We've done it all over the world. But we also have a very strong sense of rules and fair play. And I think that is what's sticking in the craw of a lot of voters at the moment, which is that when you look at the illegal migration problem, you look at boats coming over from France, it is not the sense of fair play. You know, it's breaking the rules, it's coming over illegally from a safe country. And I think that, and especially at a time where, you know, people's finances are stretched beyond belief, you know, really tough times for a lot of people, to see billions and billions of pounds being frittered every single day, it really angers people. And I think that all parties are really going to have to wake up to this, because it is going to be one of the main issues of the next 4 years heading into that election, even more than it was last time, I think, because at the moment this problem doesn't seem to be abating at all. We have a record small boat crossings under Labour. Hotels, while they came down from December, are still up from the election. It is something which the Labour government are going to have to get to grips with. Tory and Reform also need to come up with some answers, because this is going to be one of the biggest issues. And if you look at the polling now, it shows that immigration is the very top of people's concerns.
Been saying it for months. And interestingly, you used another great word, which is compassion. And I feel like we've become apologists, right, Jack? Because, yes, you're right. You're much younger than me, right? Yes, we've always been compassionate. But it's about time, in my humble opinion, that the British political system was compassionate to the British people, because the British people do not feel that they're being treated compassionately. And I know all the do-gooders will go, well, you don't know what it's like to be born in a war-torn country. No, neither does some man, a criminal probably, in a tent in France who knows he's going to get a 4-star hotel. That's the point. I want to ask you about guts, political guts, on two situations as well. We've talked about migration. Since I finished last Wednesday, Zia Youssef not only resigned as the Reform Party chairman, he's come back, and today he's front and centre saying that every illegal migrant in Britain will be deported. Now, I'm a little bit confused about this. Not that he resigned, and I've seen people ask questions to Nigel, you know, what's it like? And he made the point that it's a pressurised environment, and maybe the burqa thing caused a bit of consternation for Zia, and I'm glad that he's back. This mass deportations, though, unless I've got this wrong, isn't this the reason that Rupert Lowe fell out with Reform Party? Because he was apparently saying things that were too outrageous in the end. Is that right or wrong?
Well, it's one of the reasons anyway, I think. And there were accusations from some people on the right that Nigel Farage had gone soft on deportations. Right. He did an interview a few months ago where he was asked, will you, if you are Prime Minister, deport every single illegal migrant in the country? And he sort of shrugged and said it's a political impossibility, and therefore that wasn't his ambition. Now, I think Rupert Lowe had already broken ties with Reform at this time, and absolutely went for him, and so did some of his supporters on social media, saying that Farage had sold out and that he wasn't as tough and the real deal like he said he was. So it's interesting now to see Zia Youssef, someone who I would say is probably he's not on the left, but he's definitely pretty softer than Farage in his views, definitely more than Rupert Lowe. And he seemed to, completely say that he would actually, and Reform would, if they got in, deport every single illegal migrant. And so I don't know whether he's sort of just making up for the fact that he seems to have fallen out with Reform and then kissed and made up over the past few days. Something does seem to be going on here. I think there is definitely an element that he was overworked and he's probably feeling a bit tired and therefore has massively regretted this statement. But also I think there were internal differences at the top of Reform. Zia Youssef potentially feeling a bit sidelined by other people, having put all this work in over the past 11 months. But listen, he's come back into the fold now. He clearly thinks he's got work to do. He's going to be heading up this Doge project of Reform-led councils, going in there, doing an Elon Musk-style efficiency drive. And it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with. But, at the moment, we saw this in Nigel Farage's press conference today. It just feeds into this idea that Nigel Farage pulls out with a lot of people, and he has denied that today and says that, listen, if someone comes after me, then I'll get rid of them, but on the whole, I get on with lots of people.
I have to say, and it might not be a popular view, I don't care if people fall out with him. I don't care if he sacks everybody. I have to believe that he is finally, fingers crossed, a politician who doesn't give a toss if he falls out with people, because he's going to get it done. One final question, because we've got to get to the break, and I know you're a busy man. The winter fuel screeching U-turn by the Labour government today. Will it cost Richard III her job, yes or no?
I don't think it will. I think that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer are ideologically joined at the hip. Just ask Liz Truss the perils of a Prime Minister getting rid of their Chancellor with who they are. Their fates are intertwined now. Yep. That was Keir Starmer's budget as much as it was Rachel Reeves. I think both of them will be absolutely kicking themselves over this entire shambles of a saga, which has been drawn out for 11 months. I don't think she will go, despite the fact Keir Starmer is ruthless. However, that does not mean to say that it will be easy for her by any means to regain public trust. It will be incredibly hard.
You're a good man. First day on the job, 10 out of 10 from us. Jack Elsom, political editor of The Sun, live from Westminster. Talk Drive is on 0344 499 1000. Be part of it, otherwise I'm here on my own, 20 to 5.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I am merely Kevin O'Sullivan's fluffer. He's here from 7 o'clock. We're here for the next, 2.5 hours before that. Voice notes, 0344 499 1000. Ryan's lined them up. Let's go to Stevie on winter fuel. Go.
All I can say is this U-turn on the winter fuel, they've lost even more credibility with me, because if they'd stuck it out, I'd have said fair play to them, but they didn't. They've just capitulated, and just shows what a spineless lot they are.
They'd have got more respect from you. How can you possibly even say that, my friend? I mean, I am not a political animal, but you would sit down, wouldn't you, and you go, right, so there's 70 million people in this country. I'm thinking pensioners, veterans, those with disabilities and mental illness. You know, these are the people we should be perhaps trying to keep on. So farmers, you know, taxpayers, people like that. No, I'll tell you what, we'll screw everybody that matters and we'll just look after a bunch of illegal migrants and spend £4.7 billion putting them in hotels. I am, in the end, going to implode. Jamie, on immigration, go.
When will these politicians understand that immigration underpins every problem in our modern society? We've got failing NHS, education, road networks, water, treatment, energy, everything is failing. And it's all down to the number of end users. If there's no money to invest in the infrastructure for these services, the only way to combat is to decrease the end users. So until they do that, these services are never, ever going to be fit for purpose for the working man.
What a wise man he is. Jamie on immigration. Keep those voice notes going. 0344 499 1000, 4:45. My next guest, Jake Wallace-Simmons, author and columnist, and author of Islamophobia, the newest version of the oldest hatred. What did you say? Brilliant. We'll do that again. Author of Israelophobia. I managed to get that totally wrong. All right, Ryan, you smart-ass. The newest version of the oldest hatred and what to do about it. Delighted to be joined. Jake, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. Very well. How are you?
I'm all right. I've just been pulled up by a producer who I gave the winner of the Derby to on Saturday, so I think he should be more grateful. Let's start slightly light-heartedly. I suspect that Israel is quaking in its boots as Greta Thunberg and her idiotic friends have arrived just outside Gaza on a boat, and Israel decided to seize it, which is utter. I can't bear all these bloody acts. They do. I can't. People say to me, "You're being unfair." No, I'm not. They just jump on the bandwagon, don't they, Jake?
Yeah, it's been called the softest military operation in history, the operation to take over the selfie yacht, so-called, that's been making its way to Gaza. I mean, obviously they knew they were going to be boarded by the Israelis. The best picture, though, was that one, did you see it, of Greta Thunberg wearing a froggy sun hat, accepting a sandwich from the Israelis. Apparently, she'd eaten her way through a lot of the aid. There wasn't very much of it left by the time they got to Gaza.
So she had a sandwich that she accepted from the Israelis,
So she had a sandwich from the Israelis. Obviously, you know, that didn't disturb her morals. The Israelis, thankfully, have taken her ashore, and they're doing the world a favour by giving her some of the schooling that she'd missed. They're going to be sitting her in front of that awful footage of October the 7th, showing exactly what Hamas got up to on that fateful day and exactly who she's been supporting by giving them aid. Don't forget, when she gives them aid, she allows them to sell it, make money, pay their fighters, carry on the war. That's what she's doing.
Jake, I'm fascinated to have you on, and I mean that. I've without going into too much detail, I've been very vocal, and I was from that very day on a show I did before, and it caused a lot of people to fall out with me. But I have several really close Jewish friends who still tell me to this day their kids can't walk in North London in their blazers for fear of being abused. I'd like to nail this right now and say, I don't like what's going on in Gaza. I don't like the thought of when I tuck my kids up at night, it breaks my heart. But unfortunately, war is horrific and it has consequences. It doesn't condone it. Do you believe, we all saw the horrendous atrocities, do you, as an Israeli, do you support the continued action? Do you look at Gaza and think, God, there's got to be another way? Or is it, sadly, a fact that this vile terrorist organisation, not tit for tat, needs to be eradicated off the face of the earth at all costs, almost?
Well, look, you can't put out 90% of a fire. If you do that, it just burns back. And that's really what Israel is dealing with. It has to win over this jihadi menace because they've said themselves that they're going to do October the 7th again and again and again, so long as they can. The only way to solve that problem is to take them out, to obliterate them, to take them away from power in Gaza. And look, this isn't a war that anybody in Israel wanted. This isn't a war they asked for, that they started, but it's a war they've got to finish because they're up against an enemy that doesn't respect human life either on their own side or on the Israeli side. They've come already for Israel's children. They'll come for our kids as well if they could. These are the people, the same sort, who blew up the London bus a few years ago, who've done countless terror attacks across Europe, the Bataclan attack and elsewhere. That's the sort of mentality we've got to deal with. We dealt with ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Israel's dealing with Hamas in the same way.
While we're on Greta Thunberg and a sandwich with the Israelis, I just love the thought of her being sat down to talk facts. Dawn French, this happened over the weekend. She apologises for a video she put on social media. It was a sort of sarcastic take on October the 7th, and it's bitten her right on the backside, to be fair, and quite right. I mean, again... OK, so I will be attacked for saying this, big enough and old enough to take it, nearly 60. I do a show which is about opinion, so that's fine, I'm allowed one. Why do all these activists, actresses and actors and bloody do-gooders feel that they have, not a right, they've got a right to an opinion, but why do they always feel they're right? I just find it... maybe I'm the wrong person nowadays, but I see some of this stuff online and I just want to tell them all to shut up or just go and visit Gaza or something.
Well, exactly. I think it's a sense of self-importance. I mean, you can imagine Benjamin Netanyahu picking up the phone and saying, what, Dawn French has told me I've got to stop the war, then let me stop the war. You know, it's absolutely absurd. And in fact, I've got a friend in Gaza from my time as a foreign correspondent, and he said to me on the phone the other day, tell them all to come over and take my place. But he added, there's no transgender bathrooms over here. But look, you know, this woman, she's as stupid as the rest of them. The problem is they live in an echo chamber. They think that everyone agrees with what they believe. And so they put it out into the world expecting applause. And instead, she's got roundly pilloried for this ridiculous and offensive way in which she mocked October the 7th and the victims of October the 7th. She then was forced to issue an apology saying that she didn't intend to mock October the 7th, even though that's exactly what she did. And then she condemned violence on both sides. Well, if you're going to condemn violence on both sides, I've got a number of questions for you. Number one, why, Dawn French, do you not have an Israeli flag alongside the Palestinian flag in your Twitter bio? And secondly, how is Israel supposed to respond without violence to October the 7th? If Hamas came into Britain, killed 1,500 of our civilians, took hundreds of hostages away into a neighbouring territory and kept them in dungeons tortured, how would the British Army respond? With what, flowers and negotiations? We would want them to go in hard and get our people back, and that's exactly what the Israelis are doing.
Couldn't agree more. Real pleasure, Jake, to have you on. Jake Wallace-Simmons, author and a columnist, I'll get this right, author of Israelophobia, the newest version of the oldest hatred and what to do about it. Great to have him on. 10 to 5 on Talk Drive.
these lawyers' costs are not included in this 4.7 billion, and the 4.7 billion figure, Mike, includes the hotel costs. It also includes the kind of the landlord accommodation that the likes of Serco will pay you 5 years, all your rent, all your kind of utilities and stuff. So it's a staggering amount of money. And as you point out there, so 600,000 people have to get up, go to work every single day, pay their taxes, because they earn on average in the UK it's about £38,000 a year. So obviously you earn that money, the government takes the tax, and you need 600,000 of them to pay the asylum accommodation bill.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We've been doing this for a year and I still can't get to that audio-visual sensorama. Sounds like a disease. 0344 499 1000 is a telephone number. You can text if you feel that winning. 87222. Mark says, can't we make arrangements with the French to put our own forces on their beaches to stop the crossing? Surely it'd be a cheaper option. Oh, you can't imagine what we'd actually stop them. That might upset people. I'd just send the Navy into the Channel. Sorry, Ryan thinks I'm wrong. Sally. Aunt Sally, do you remember that? I really hope Zia and Reform mean what they say when they say mass deportations will happen under them if they get into government. The people in the UK are pinning their hopes on Reform to try and get our country back. Steve's in Cambridge. My mate works for the Blob. Does he? He told me he works 4 days a week from home. He also works for an agency, and he says that every time deportation is mentioned, his colleagues have a hissy fit and threaten to down tools. Jesus God. Joanna from Salisbury, hello. Jez, Dawn French didn't U-turn with an apology because she was sorry she saw money disappearing out of the door. Nothing as good as ideology hitting you in the pocket. Max says, why hasn't Dawn French been imprisoned for her tweet? One law for all... Why hasn't Dawn French been in prison for her tweet? One law for ordinary people, like, of course, Lucy Connolly, and another law for celebs. What do you make of that? That's a fantastic point from Mac. Let's go to Southend. Michael, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Jeremy. Yourself?
I've got a minute and a half for you, Max. Sorry, me old son.
Okay.
Go.
All right. Right, so I'm an old age pensioner.
Don't sound it. You sound about 30, man.
I wish I was. So I'm 68 in a couple of months' time.
Yeah.
I work full-time, 37.5 hours a week.
Yeah.
Regarding the U-turn on the winter fuel payment allowance, they're saying they're going to cap it at 30 or 35,000.
35 grand, yeah.
So if I'm working, I don't mind telling you my business, so I earn about 30 grand a year on my job. So will they then include my state pension on top of that, taking it up to 42 or 43,000?
That's I'd love somebody who knows. Ryan, let's get on that. So if he's earning 30 and he's 68, will they add his pension of 12, make it 42 and take it away, or do they base it entirely on what he's earning? That's a really good question, mate.
So, I mean, there's a lot of pensioners that still work. I want to travel, so I have to go to work to afford the holidays that I want to do. So why should I be penalised for working and still paying tax out of my earnings and everything else? Why should I be penalised for the 51 years national insurance I've paid into this?
Well, I'll tell you why, because we've got to find £4.7 billion a year to pay for illegal migrants to stay in hotels, pal. Because
don't even start.
It's not nice on the beach in war-torn France, in a tent. Don't get me on this, mate. Something's happening in this country. We're going to email the Treasury. They'll probably get back to us in 2029. I'm going to get an answer to you. It's a really, really good point. We appreciate you listening. Keep listening. That is Michael in Southend. We'll shoot to Swindon. Or is it Swindon? It is Swindon. Kev, hello. How are you?
Oh, is it me? Yeah. Oh, Swansea.
Hold on. It says Swindon. Even I know that says Swindon, Kevin. It says Kevin in Swindon. Are you in Swansea?
Yeah, I'm in Swansea. It don't matter.
Harry Potter's illiterate. Right, you got 2 minutes. Crack on.
Yeah, I was just saying that Greta Thunberg, I called her Greta Garbo when I rang up. I was sorry about that. But Greta Thunberg, that's just a publicity thing.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
Because she ain't been on suppose. I'll probably get arrested now. But, that's crazy.
I couldn't agree more. I'm not sure about your choice of phrase. Ryan's on the floor. I'm with you in that this is where I'm at 60, right? Why am I going to be lectured to by a 22-year-old who's... Now, the left used to say to me, Jez, she cares. She cares about veganism and Just Stop Oil and what's happening in Gaza. And she's on this boat, although she's eating an Israeli-given sandwich. That's hysterical, by the way. And the fact the boat is powered by diesel fuel is equally bloody ludicrous. But the problem that I have with people like Greta paying in the Thunberg is this, right? I don't believe that they believe in anything. I think they just climb aboard because they're bloody activists and that makes them look good. That's what I think, Kev.
Well, I 100% agree with you because I'll go down to the indoor market and there's a poster up there with the guy from Star Wars and he says, I am a Vulcan, not a vegan.
Brilliant. OK, Kev in Swansea or Swindon, who obviously lives in a parallel universe. Thank you for being on Talk Drive. It's almost 5 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Don't forget, by the way, I was listening this morning, talk about a breakfast show that's better than any other programme in the history of the world, including yours, O'Sullivan. Mike Graham, back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m, Morning Glory. Fantastic this morning. Fantastic. Apart from Migrant of the Day, he's now got Lie of the Day. It starts about 6 o'clock. That's when Starmer opens his eyes and opens his gob and you wonder what crap's going to come out of his mouth. Listen, if you want to be on the next hour, we'll kick off with Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. The Lord of Norfolk has left the mansion and is deigning us with his presence. A question for Benedict or just a comment on what's happening? 0344 499 1000 is my number. Text me. Please do that. We'll get your messages on 8722. Start your message with the word talk. Or WhatsApp voice notes 0344 499 1000. The news at 5 is next, followed by a man who thinks a tank top is fashionable. This is Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back hour 2 of Drive for Monday. We're across the UK. This is Talk, the home of free speech and common sense, and the station that you can come to and say what you want. We're not out to offend. We're out to say to people, you know what? What sort of upsets you? What worries you? What concerns you at the moment? 3 ways of contacting the show. No Jodie today. She's been replaced by Harry Potter. He's about 8'7", the same size as Ryan. Big glasses. And if you do ring him on 0344 499 1000, you start with Harry Potter, and he will put you through. Ryan's taking your voice notes on WhatsApp, same number, and we'll take your text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. What a day it's been, my friends. Greta Thunberg seized by the Israelis and said, oh, sorry, I'll have a sandwich. Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, Lord of the Manor, has left the sort of sprawling estate north of Watford Gap and ventured down to town for the afternoon. Was it lunch at the club or something?
Funnily enough, yes. Actually,
Yes,
I have done that amongst other things.
Yes, I thought it was.
I set off last week and I finally reached London.
By horse and cart,
yes,
presumably from Norfolk.
I thought I deserved a hearty lunch of mainly just offal.
How is Norfolk?
It's all right. It's quite flat, yeah.
Yeah, it is quite flat, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm not going to do that because I'll be fired. Where would you... I'm going to let you pick. Reform UK, winter fuel screeching U-turn, that I wanted to start last hour with a joke about that, and I gave it to Danny, who said, if you're brave enough, it's up to you, which is, I was doing my driving test, and the examiner said, can you make a U-turn? I said... and the rest I'll fill in. Winter fuel, or the insane figure on the front of the Sun today, baby. 4.7 billion migrant hotel bill takes every penny in tax from a workforce the size of the city of Manchester. Let's start with that. I mean, that is... So. We can all sit here, right, and we can go on and on about, like, this is ludicrous. Something is going to give in this country. I don't care what anybody says, man.
You simply cannot ask people to accept the cuts to their public services as this government is doing and accept the rises in their tax as this government is doing whilst you keep this in place. You need to be able to show people, to demonstrate to people that you're bringing these bills down and that you're reducing the number of people who are coming to the country that are requiring this. If you don't do that, you're not going to win the next election. It's really straightforward. This is at the top of everybody's list of priorities. Not being in London for a very long time, I've had a lot of opportunities to talk to people outside of London.
Yep.
You know, the normal people that the Westminster media constantly tell us that they know exactly who they are. And it doesn't matter if they're Tory voters, Labour voters, Lib Dems, Greens. I'm talking all people. Migration is on the top of everybody's agenda.
I said it 3 years ago and everybody laughed at me and said, no, it's number 3. I don't believe it. And I'll tell you why I don't believe it. I don't believe it because I think we've reached this moment where... And I thought James Price nailed it earlier when he said that we've always been this sort of sympathetic, reasonable, morally balanced nation that tries to do the right thing. We're skint and we cannot do the right thing compassionately by our own people. That's the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you decide that growth, economic growth, is not so important and that you're going to prioritise other things, sooner or later you are going to run out of the abilities to do those other things because you need money. If we want to turn ourselves into the world's largest migrant hotel, we can do that if you have the money for it. But you know what we don't have? The money for that, or any of the other things that we actually want. And this is, of course, the main thing, as much as people like James Price will point out correctly, that this, one of the great things about this country's culture, which we're often told we're not really allowed to talk about, you're only allowed to talk about it in terms of diversity, but is, as you say, tolerance. And that actually stems from not wanting to interfere in other people's business.
Don't you think it's apologising for the past?
Well,
I don't think it's about time we stopped apologising for the past and stopped apologising to everybody and looked after our own?
I'd actually prefer people properly remembered what the past was, for a start. The whole, apologising for things. It turns out often we apologise for things that never happened as much as anything else. There is this perception that the British Empire was uniquely evil in the history of the world. Except, of course, when you compare it to every other empire or civilization that's ever existed, at which point, oh, actually, it looks quite good. But we never have that conversation because that's problematic, and then it's talking about other people's cultures not being as good as ours, and that is, of course, not very tolerant. But I would prefer it if we did that. But honestly, the fact of the matter is people in this country don't like to stick their noses into other people's business. That's where a lot of our tolerance comes from. It's not that we're come and everybody have a great old time. It's that's your business. That's nothing to do with me. So I'm not going to bother you. That people take advantage of that.
Right. Well,
when the state decides, nobody's going to question what we do. That's what it is.
I tell you, I'm going to read this, and it is quite contentious. It's from a mate of mine, Rob, but I want to read it because it makes a point that I feel really strongly about and has got me into trouble online before, but it's not meant to come out the wrong way. If we are so attractive to people, illegal migrants, because we are soft or the pull is greater, and we know that that's the reason, in my mind we should make it less attractive and less soft because we're having the mickey taken out of us. The reason I think people have switched on is because their lives are now impacting. As you said, he says, I'm mystified that anyone in this country can't see that mass immigration is as clear and present a danger to the way we live our lives. It's changed everything. It's beyond comprehension that these people started in power with Tony Blair and continue to stay. Basically, this is going to change our lives forever. He said, I saw a newspaper article the other day that said, and I saw this over the weekend, white people could be in a minority in a certain number of years in this country. It's as if, says Rob, our eyes are wide open. This is happening. And people are allowing this to happen, especially politicians. I don't even think it's about the next election. I'm not talking about people rising up. I don't care the colour of your skin. In my mind, it's what you started with, which is we can't afford to look after what we've got. So why are we allowing more people to come in to stretch that still further? Because we're even more screwed. And the other thing is, the people that come into this country, because apparently they're trying to escape their countries, and we're so... Why do they then slag our country off and try and integrate, bring in stuff? I don't ever understand that either.
The thing to remember is, when we talk about migration in the early years, the Windrush generation and the people that came from Pakistan and British East Africa, those people came because they wanted to be British. But what we've had since then is the denigration of what it is to be British. We're told instead that Britain is not a great country, that it's a country, as you said, that needs to apologise for its sins.
Then why are you coming here?
Exactly.
Why, if it's so crap, are you coming here?
And that every other culture is equally valid. And what you then have is, if you're constantly told, as the white British majority, for example, if you're constantly told your culture is bad, and that's not actually what it really means to be British. Being British means something else. Then sooner or later, people will start to look for other things that are British. And this is what we have. The story that was on the front pages a couple of days ago, the Prevent strategy, talking about how having anti-migrant sentiments might be a sign of extremism. And it wasn't that it was actually the interesting thing. If you dove down into the story, it was the idea of ethno-nationalism, the idea that to be British, you have to be white. Now, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that just didn't cross people's minds. It wasn't a topic of conversation. As you say, nobody would turn around and go, Chris Eubank, he's not British, or Emil Heskey, he's not British, because of the colour of his skin. But that is starting to become a question that you're seeing on the extremes. Why? Because the thing that used to unify us, British culture, has been told, nope, got to get rid of that, got to have something else.
But my basic point is, if you are so against the British culture, you can only be perceived as being here because you're taking advantage, or you believe that you can come here and change it. My point is this: if my country is so abhorrent, let me sort my country out. Don't come here, take advantage and slag it off. It's the whole. It's almost duplicitous. And of course, I get that the minute you have that sort of conversation, people jump up and down. And they say, I'm not. There isn't a race. I've told the story before. There's a guy that picks me up from the station at night. He's from Bangladesh. He's been here 40 years. He is more patriotic and British than you and I, times 50 put together. He hates what's happening with illegal migrants. He thinks it's an absolute joke because his dad said, like the Windrush generation, you are going to this country, they're going to give you an opportunity, we're going to make something for our lives, we're going to be forever grateful and forever. He's more royalist than anybody. He's more, and that's what we're talking about. It's changed. People come here to take the PISS out of Great Britain, and that does my head in.
Very often, the people that you will find who are most critical of this are those people who came here in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s from Pakistan and East Africa and the Caribbean.
Because they did it in their mind, they did it correctly.
Yeah, because they strove to become British,
and provided they involved themselves, gave something back.
But now they are tarred with the same brush as everybody else. And there's this really sort of nasty expression that's beginning to take a hold, which is global majority. No longer ethnic minorities, global majority. And people don't like that. Ethnic minorities don't like being tarred with the idea that you are part of some massive blob of people and there are more of you out there in the world and therefore you have some sort of political power over the people who are
you know
here.
what, B? Mine's a really simple theory. I genuinely can say this with my hand on my heart. I don't care about the colour of his skin. My makeup artist, Magdalena, right? Came from Poland and dragged herself up and built a successful business with girls. She's more appalled about illegal migration than the guy that drives the car from Bangladesh, and more than you and me, because she's worked and grafted and is proud to be in Britain. We cannot afford to allow this to continue happening, and I genuinely believe that what will happen is, I'm not talking about people taking to the streets, I think people have had enough, and I don't think it matters about political parties. I think people are going to say, sorry mate, compassion and charity needs to begin at home, because this is a joke.
But you know what I would say about people like Marta and Magda and those people who come and they have the work ethic?
Yes.
That's the key thing, it's the work ethic.
Yeah.
They are in so many ways amazed that we have a system that allows so many people to sponge off those
That's
who work.
the pull factor.
Yeah.
That's why people come, because we're not saying you've got to come and provide and contribute. We're saying you can come and have absolutely everything.
But this is the thing, it was bad enough when it was just white British people doing that, and there were millions of those people, and we have to then have honest questions about deindustrialisation and why there were no jobs for all of those people, and why was that they were effectively doped into being, you know, dependent on the state, because that's what it is, financial doping, why it is that we thought that was an acceptable system for millions of people. Because, as is now happening, people from around the world are saying, they have a very laissez-faire attitude towards their borders, and it seems like it's quite easy to get money once you're there. Everybody is then going to want to come a piece of it. And why wouldn't they? That's the thing. If the system lets them, why wouldn't they try and do that?
I don't care what anybody says. I could stop it in a heartbeat. Love to know what you think of those people. Mass immigration, 0344 499 1000. Before we talk about winter fuel and we talk about Reform UK, I want to talk about the big news story of the day. Greta Thunberg and activists on the selfie yacht have been held by the Israelis and quite rightly forced to watch harrowing footage of October the 7th. Two things about this, although there was a picture of her eating a sandwich given by the Israelis, because it's been quite a turbulent crossing, and she's had the poops, and so she needed a nice sandwich, so she's taken that. People I heard do my head in. Dawn French. Really interesting from Lorraine, this. Not Lorraine, who still works in ITV Just, it's somebody else. Dawn French's tweet was abhorrent. The mockery of the terrible barbarism carried out on October the 7th is totally offensive. Can you please explain to me, Jez, why the police are not knocking her door down, rifling through her underwear drawer and commenting on her book choices? Double standards yet again from a totally and utterly two-tier police force. The woman is not apologetic. She is just concerned about her bank balance. We can come back again and again to Lucy Connolly, who made some abhorrent comments about migrants. She took the tweet down after 3 hours. She's serving 31 months in jail. That is a really, really good point from Lorraine. Dawn French, I'm sorry, going to get away with it. Explain how that works. It's absolutely fundamentally wrong. I'm not saying go and arrest Dawn French. What I'm saying is, that poor woman's languishing in jail. She surely should have been given community service, told how that was wrong to talk about Muslims like that.
Of course, but that's because this is what the state chooses to prioritise. It chooses to prioritise going after certain people and not others. It's very interesting because this is now happening amidst the backdrop, and of course it started really ratcheting up after Southport, and we all understand why that happened. But I was fascinated. Dominic Cummings did an interview with Sky News a couple of weeks ago where he was talking about, and he's still plugged into the matrix of Westminster, and he was talking about how one of the major fears that security forces have now in this country is the sense that there is a lot of discord and unrest, and that could sort of pop off at any moment. And it tells you who it is that the authorities are more concerned by. It's that they take one group of people as being fundamentally worse ideologically than others, and they're going to target those people because those are the ones, and it's not going to necessarily be down to ideology writ large. Do you know what it'll be down to? Numbers. They will have decided, right, the number of people in this country that believe this thing is larger than believe that thing. So that's more of a problem if they start kicking off. That's why people like Lucy Connolly will be targeted more than people like Dawn French, because Dawn French is very much in the minority. It doesn't even matter if her views are trendy or not. They are the minority. The majority are what frighten the authorities.
I tell you, I don't know, something's going to give. Anyway. Let's talk about Reform UK. You've been quite vocal about Reform UK. Since I finished the show on Wednesday, Zia Youssef, who I interviewed on Tuesday for half an hour, resigned as chairman, saying he couldn't take it anymore, it was too pressurising. We believe it was on the back of the Sarah Puchin question about the burqa, supported by Badenoch today, by the way. 2 days later, he's back. Not only is he back, he's front and centre today, saying the very language that I thought got Rupert Lowe thrown out of Reform, which was, the Reform UK will deport every illegal immigrant, one of the party's most senior figures, Zia Youssef, said today. He's promised mass deportations. Does that mean that they're now thinking that that is the right thing to do? Is this Sir Yusuf? I don't know the best way to put this. You wouldn't think I broadcast for a living. Is it him being strong? Is it him being more vocal than before to try and get back in favour with? I don't know. Help me out.
Possibly. I think reform is actually behind the public on a lot of these issues, on things like the burqa or deportations. I actually think the Overton window, as they say, which is what is acceptable to think, has shifted a lot further right than anybody realises. Even reform. I think they didn't quite realise how much people are fed up with this as an issue. And I think that they're playing catch-up slightly. And I think what Sarah Putchin said, bringing up the burqa, which, let's be honest, it's something that's always there in the back of your mind, but it's a long time since it was a front-page story. And suddenly it's been brought back to the front page and everybody started going, oh, hang on, yes, I remember, this is a slightly illiberal thing. Why is it that we tolerate this? And Rupert Lowe talking about other things that, perceived as being once upon a time far right and are now considered actually sort of fairly centre right. Reformers had to be sort of dragged along, if you like, amidst all of that. It is seeing the reaction to the fallout with Rupert Lowe, which, let's also be clear, that's a personality clash between Farage and Rupert Lowe. So they've seen what that was, and now they've seen what's happened here with the reaction to the burqa, and they've gone, we can perhaps afford to be a little bit more unapologetically right-wing, because this is a concern of many Reform voters, especially after they saw the Rupert Lowe debacle, which is that what Reform will do is, as its polling gets higher and higher and higher, and therefore the stakes get higher because they think, wow, we might actually get somewhere with this, they might start to lose their nerve. Because that's even worse than getting into power would be almost getting there and then fluffing it.
But then let's look at the states and Donald Trump has deployed the National Guard to LA to curb unrest over immigration raids. The decision has sparked fury from Gavin Newsom. I think that's brilliant. The Californian governor, that useless mayor who managed to set fire, stood while most of LA burnt. They're all jumping up and down. All the lefties are out. Everybody's absolutely abhorrent. Now, here's my mind. Donald Trump, love him or not, said, I'm going to carry out deportations. And he was elected. He won the popular vote for the first time in decades. He's doing what he said he was going to do. And when people start to protest against that, he sends in the National Guard. Now, that, I don't care what... Sorry, I'm obviously using my... That's what we need. That is conviction. Politician, that you might disagree.
No, I don't.
I think we're hamstrung by people who actually, interestingly, what you said before, I'm near the prize, I need to sanitise myself. Why don't you have the courage of your convictions, stand in front of the British people, say, this is what I'm going to do, like it or loathe it, and if you don't want it, I'll disappear, but if you do, come with me on the journey, there'll be some bumps in the road, but I'll get it done. That's it.
Do you know what I think people respond to? They respond to authority and a sign that people will get things done. That's ultimately effectiveness in authority. And this is something that I think Reform and the Tories and everybody else actually has to think about, which is people don't necessarily mind what direction it comes from. Jeremy Corbyn came a lot closer to becoming Prime Minister than a lot of people tend to remember because he offered something. All it would take would be somebody on the left, for instance, to actively offer something more coherent and be seen to be taking action on things in the same way that, for instance, Reform have offered something new, and you could very easily see a swing away from Labour in that direction as well. It just so happens that the Greens are largely
when you talk about
useless.
courage of convictions, I always say to my kids, have a go and fail, but you'll be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I had a go. So you're right about Corbyn. I remember my old man, God rest his soul, was die-hard Tory. He said, he's actually, he sticks to what he thinks. I think he was quite impressed. I would prefer, whether it's Farage and Reform or somebody else, to say, there I am, unsanitised, that's what it is, highs and lows, bumps in the road. If you're going to vote for me, we're going to do it. Because I think that is what the British people want to hear now.
Well, do you know what I said to Aaron Bastani of Novara Media? I thought Corbyn came along 10 years too early. He was just slightly ahead of the curve and he wasn't quite the right person. But do you know who's doing really well? Novara Media. A lot of people check out their stuff right now because there is an appetite for something that is a bit more dynamic, that actually promises change and that sort of thing, rather than what we have under Starmer, which is, the law says this is difficult, therefore we shouldn't do it. This court says we should give this thing away, even though it's monumentally stupid, we've got to do this. What they want is the opposite of a Prime Minister who sits there and goes, my hands are tied. They want somebody who goes, I'm going to break through this regulation.
Well, like Dominic Cummings, who people love to hate. One day I'll tell the story of why I think Dominic Cummings is fantastic. It's a very personal story and something he did for me, right? But that's for another day. I saw an interview at the weekend that said the reason he got rid of Boris Johnson was that Boris Johnson started to backtrack back.
Yeah.
And back down to the blob and the system, and that they'd won by saying we're going to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And then he started to kowtow. Are we going to find a politician in this country who takes on the blob and takes on the establishments and takes on every other bugger, including the press, and says, I got an electoral mandate, that's what I'm going to do?
What I would say is, a lot of people are saying, with reform doing so well, that the two-party system in this country has been broken. They're saying it's been shattered.
Do you think it has?
What I would say is, for a start, I'd say never rule out the Tories. First and foremost, if they pick Robert Jenrick to be leader, I think all of a sudden they become live players again, because he gets it in a way that just no other Tory politician seems to. He does. But what I would say is, the evaporation of support for both the Tories and the Labour Party shows me not necessarily that the system is broken, but that those old loyalties and any sense of loyalty is gone. If Farage backtracks and betrays his voters, he won't even last as long as Labour and the Tories have. He will be gone in a heartbeat. People will abandon his party because they don't even have that ingrained loyalty towards him. And that's something he will have to navigate very clearly, because he's going to have lots of different voices in his ear saying, well, actually, we should go down the sort of the free market route.
I'd
Maybe we
go
should be
what's it or
protectionist.
bust if I was Nigel Farage. I absolutely would go full steam ahead, because one of the things that I would say about the Tories, and let's go to a break, is I hear all the time from Tory politicians, we're the oldest established party, this is just a protest vote. No, it isn't a protest vote. Something is growing in this country, and you're right, you're dead right about Nigel. Really good. So he deigned us with his company from Norfolk. You're shooting tomorrow, are you?
No, not tomorrow. No. End of the weekend, maybe.
Lovely. The amazing Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, always welcome on this show. Thank you very much indeed, Benedict. 0344 499 1000. Harry Potter's taking your calls. Just ring us, for God's sake. This is Talk Drive.
These lawyers' costs are not included in this 4.7 billion, and the 4.7 billion figure, Mike, includes the hotel costs. It also includes the kind of the landlord accommodation that the likes of Serco will pay you 5 years, all your rent, all your kind of utilities and stuff. So it's a staggering amount of money. And as you point out there, so 600,000 people have to get up, go to work every single day, pay their taxes, because they earn on average, in the UK, it's about £38,000 a year. So obviously you earn that money, the government takes the tax, and you need 600,000 of them to pay the asylum accommodation bill.
Talk about tone deaf and a lack of self-awareness. To say that she's been kidnapped while she's trying to deliver supplies into Hamas-held territory, where Hamas is holding 55 hostages, is just a complete lack of self-awareness and shows how disconnected these activists are from reality. It was a pathetic publicity stunt. They tried to make Israel look bad, and instead Israel has distributed an image of Greta looking longingly at an Israeli soldier, giving her a pastrami.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
God, I've seen it all now. Greta Thunberg in a Palestinian scarf eating an Israeli sandwich. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Welcome to Drive. Liam, I could not agree more. I'm getting on this. Mike Amesbury assaults a constituent and gets a suspended sentence, the Labour MP. Gary Lineker posts anti-Semitic tweets, and that's OK. Now Dawn French, who makes mockery of October the 7th. But poor Lucy Connolly has sat in a cell for a tweet. Two-tier policing again about this country. Gertie, a very good afternoon to you. I really like this message. Thank you. Do you remember the Windrush generation, Jez? Many of them were deported simply because they weren't given the proper paperwork to remain in the UK. Despite having lived here for decades, raised families and contributed to society. Why weren't they allowed to say? Because now this government seems to be letting in legal migrants and it doesn't seem both fair or to make sense. Could not agree with you anymore. To the phone lines. Let's go to Plymouth. This is interesting. Angie, did you go to school with Dawn French?
I did, for my sins.
What was she like at school?
She was great, I have to say. And, you know, I did say to the person I spoke to before you spoke to me, the first time I spoke to you, Jeremy, I've spoken to everybody else on talk apart from you. So
why did it take you so long?
I don't know. Well, I've always been in awe of you, but here we are. I've made it.
In awe of me? No, there's only one person you should be in awe of on this station, and that's Mike Graham, my darling.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, he's my absolute hero. I've got a T-shirt. I made a T-shirt of him.
Did you?
When I go running in the mornings. Yeah, I've got
You need to get a T-shirt with his face and my face on. That would be great.
I'll see what I can do.
I'll get it sorted. So tell me about your response. You went to school with her. This is not personal against Dawn French, but I do worry massively that we're now in a country, and I thought Benedict Spence described it brilliantly, whereby there's one rule for one and one rule for the other. Lucy Connolly's in prison, for Christ's sake.
No, it's ridiculous. But no, well, I will tell you about Dawn. My claim to fame is that she was a couple of years older than me, and so when she was in the lower six, we went to a little public school, so now I've admitted that on national TV. I probably won't be able to get a doctor's appointment. But she did. My claim to fame is that when I was the king, because it was an all-girls school, so I was the king in The King and I, and when we did, you know, our end-of-year show, and my claim to fame is that she actually did my makeup.
Dawn French did your makeup. You were the king. You were the transgender king in an all-female school, and you didn't know.
No transgender.
No.
I was just acting as a bloke.
Not a penis in sight. You were just a bloke.
Yes. You know. But what I would say is that it was very interesting because we used to have mock elections whenever there was elections like that. And I think it must have been the 1979 election, taking me back now, showing my age.
Thatcher.
But she was, she stood, so there was a representative of the Conservative, because she would have like debating societies and things like that. And she, ironically, stood for the Conservative. So she was actually quite far right.
Really?
Not far right, but you know what I mean. She was, you know, on the right of
just another one of those celebrities that jumps on the bandwagon. It's Ange. I'm so in awe of you. I've got a rich tea biscuit here because I like a dunk. Fantastic to have you on, Ange in Plymouth, which gets me thinking. Well, actually, it didn't. It got Ryan thinking. In fact, if I try and sell it that it was my idea, that would be wrong. But he owes me quite a lot of money, so I'm allowed to say that. Just listening to Ange there. What celebrity did you go to school with? That's fantastic. Did any of you out there go to school with a celebrity? And if so, give me a secret. And if you went to school with me, you can sod off. What celebrity... I'm not a celebrity. What celebrity did you go to school with? That's brilliant. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I'll keep a dunking. We're going to Basildon. Are you sure that's not Belfast, Harry? Have you managed to write Basildon right? Yeah? Dave's in Basildon. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Hello, Jeremy. Great show. Yeah, if you was to find someone who could calculate how much all the asylum lawyers cost, all the court visits and the court personnel, anyone who overstays their visa is immediately an illegal immigrant, or their educational stay for a university degree. We've got to deport all of them. It's not costing 4.7 billion. It's probably 47 billion.
I couldn't agree more, but the problem is that they're here in the first place, and I don't care. I will have this argument with anybody. It is only the United... I don't care about all the bedwetters who go, well, they do it in Italy and Turkey and France. No, listen. I am all for protecting people from a war-torn country. I proved it with Ukraine. It is not a war in France. I say this every single week, Dave. I want your response. If me and the wife, right, and the kids were living in a country where there were bombs raining down, I would escape with them. I wouldn't leave them there. That's the first thing. With the first country I got to that wasn't, there weren't bombs raining down on my head, I would settle there and I would bring the wife and kids. No. The reason everybody wants to come to England is because we have become apologists for our past, and the pull of the United Kingdom is far greater than any other country because we are as soft as... That's the truth. That is absolutely the truth.
Absolutely right. But our ancestors couldn't leave the country when it was being bombed. They had to get they left. They went out there with a rifle in their hand.
Oh, well, there you go. What do you make of Greta Thunberg going to Gaza on a boat?
I'd have sunk the boat. Brilliant. My way, I'd have sunk it.
Brilliant. Fantastic. There we go. Thank you, Dave in Basildon. It could have been Belfast because Harry's not good at geography. 0344 499 1000. Delighted. My next guest, what a lovely man. Migration expert, former MEP, who will speak that much it will enable me to eat a rich tea biscuit. Stephen Wolfe, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. How are you?
You're looking very well this afternoon, sir. I'm all right. I'm slightly agitated. Front of the Sun today. I mean, this is what you've been talking about for months, years. £4.7 billion is the cost of housing and caring for migrants in hotel. It's the equivalent, Stephen, of the tax contributions, the total tax contributions of 582 adults, working adults, which is the size of a city of Manchester. We are in a serious mess in the United Kingdom, aren't we?
Well, we are, and this economic factors are beginning to be understood by most of the people now. When they look at the numbers like that, 500,000 people paying for the asylum hotels, 3.8 billion, I believe I was told that the Conservatives spent on asylum hotels in 2023, 2025, which puts into kind of real shame the numbers that the National Audit Office said that we were spending 15 billion in 10 years. That doesn't seem to make sense.
No.
When we had a number like that saying 3.8 billion in 2023, 24, must have been exactly the same last 2024, must be the same this year. That would mean 10 billion in just 3 years. The fact is, people are paying through their nose and through their taxes to go on these asylum hotels rather than the things that matter to them, which is locally through council tax to fill the holes, deal with people who are living in homes, the care homes, the hospitals that need building and improving in their schools. And I think people are getting fed up with this. And also, let's put this, Jeremy, I think it's going to be two elements that are going to push the agenda next. Crime that we now see rising in those areas, and housing that our children and their children can't get.
And I think that's the point. And for people who say, oh, you keep being unfair about these poor people. On the one hand, you've got the argument that they're not escaping a war-torn country. They're not bringing their wives and kids. They are charlatans who know that we lay out the red carpet, and it is the pull of the United Kingdom is so greater than other countries. And that's what really winds me up, because I'm all for Britain in the past being this compassionate, morally leading whatever, but we're skint. And when I say my own people, I don't mean that, but when I see people who lived here all their lives suffering because the public services are stretched still further with immigration, it just makes me mad, because I don't believe that that's fair. You're putting your own people at the back of the queue for people who don't deserve it. And that's not being compassionate to British people, is it?
No, and in some ways it's not being compassionate to the people who are coming over here either, because we're selling them a false dream about how they live here, because now we see that so many of them are also living in poverty as well. So when we look at people coming here, they're saying that, of course, the hotel is better than what they probably left. And when they're being pushed into the council houses, or when Serco's found a tenement which they can go into, yes, that's better than what they left as well. But over a period of time, as we're now seeing, they're beginning to get frustrated that the land of England isn't paved with gold. They are just being able to live on benefits. They're not being able to go out and get massive cars and massive houses and live in the nightlife that they all thought they were going to get. Suddenly they've got to work with high taxes if they're getting a job at all. So they're attracted to crime. And they've got to pay off the debts they've paid the people smugglers. I keep pushing this point. £1 billion is what people smugglers made from 2018 until a week or so ago. That's the sum of money that they've made in that period of time. And most of that will have been put on the debt of the individuals who had to come over. They've got to pay that back. So there is indebted slavery, and these individuals have to pay it back. So I think we need to look at the crime element that's going to rise because of this, because they're going to get concerned about how they pay their debts back.
Couldn't agree more. Do you believe, today we saw Zia Youssef, who, since I finished on Wednesday, it's only been 5 days, has resigned as Reform's chairman, been reinstated as former, not as a chairman, but he's now come out, right out the get-go today, saying every illegal immigrant will be sent away. Mass deportation under Reform, whether you believe that or not. It's the language that one couldn't have even begun to believe would be happening 5-10 years ago in this country. But whether it's Reform or another party, or whether it's one of the main parties that finally grasped the nettle, I believe that this is not going away at all, Stephen. I think the British people have had a bellyful. I think the British people are fed up of being treated, taken for mugs, actually. And I think whether it's pensioners, whether it's veterans, whether it's farmers, I think people in this country are compassionate. I think they're very decent, but I think that they are genuinely at the end of their tether. Would you agree with that?
I would, and I think they've been stretched to stretching point as they can be. 1.2 million illegal migrants in this country. We see lots of asylum seekers here, genuinely, many of them not fleeing torture, but just using Britain as an economic place to come and work and then bring their families over. And whilst we're stretched to that point where we can't afford lots of things that we would have liked to in the past. And so as a consequence of that, the idea of detain, deport and remove is becoming stronger by the day. And I suspect this will become a political issue along with those issues of crime and housing in the next general election.
But when you look at what's happening, and I was just seeing him on Sky, Los Angeles immigration raid protests. Donald Trump said, "I'm coming to power. I'm gonna raid, and I'm gonna send people who are in our country and shouldn't be home." And he's done that. All the lefties in LA have jumped up and down, so he sent in the National Guard. Now, I'm sure there are many people in the UK going, "Oh my God, oh my God." But he promised that policy. He was elected on that policy. Couldn't we do with somebody who's got somehow the courage, the conviction to stand and say, if you voted for me, that's what we're going to do. These people are out.
Absolutely. And one thing that everybody who voted for Donald Trump knows, that he said he was going to do it. Stephen Miller, the architect of most of these policies, actually wrote them down and said, this is what we're going to do. We understood how they tried to stop us when Donald Trump was first in place, and now we're enacting it. And what's very clear to us, Jeremy, and what we will see in this country, is organisations like Antifa, the masked criminals, who are now throwing bricks, bombs and petrol bombs at ICE, who are trying to remove the people legally, will do exactly the same here. And the left, backed by their communist supporters, will use this as a way of fracturing the vote and create more division within our nation, despite the voters supporting those policies in the first place. That's very dangerous.
Really interesting chat with you. It always is, my friend. Not sure about the red tie. The legend that is Stephen Wolfe, migration expert, former MEP, 20 to 6. This is Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Wake up. I've just had a note from Ryan. We need to do the competition before 6 o'clock, Jez. It's not acceptable for you to continually try and get out of doing it. I will do it with DAZN. Look at Ryan's face. 18 minutes to 6, we're live. He's just told me about a celebrity that he met. Well, he was near. Well, he was on Bournemouth Beach. And this celebrity was having a massive barney with his missus. Ryan gets where water doesn't get. I simply said, just on the basis of Dawn French, what celebrity did you go to school with? Lee in Birmingham says, I went to school with Oasis's... No, Oasis. Oh, shut up, you. Ozzy's eldest son. He would be your age. Well, Ozzy Osbourne's my age, Lee. I'm 60. On July the 7th, and I'm going to be on air my birthday. God knows why. Karen, rather worryingly, says, I didn't go to school. Why? Why? Probably with Rob doing something. But my mother-in-law is mentioned in David Beckham's first book, says Karen in Newcastle. Why, yay, man! Can do the tune. That was crap. Steve's in Cambridge. I went to school, and in my class there were two guys that made me laugh. Richard Head and Gordon Bennett. Very good, very good. Dick, yes. Chris says, most of the celebrities I was at school with are at an all-boys school, all ended up in Parkhurst and Wormwood Scrubs. Really, yes, very good. I like that. Who's this? Now, help me out, this people, because I don't even... Who is John Hillier? Does anybody know who John... Is this a rhyme? I went to school with John Hillier, and after school I changed Billy Idol's head gasket on his van before he became... Imagine Billy Idol going, nice day for a white wedding. I know it's crap. But imagine Billy Idol coming in wanting his head gasket changed. Bizarre. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Skegness, which is remarkably brave. Is it Maureen?
It is, indeed.
Right, let me just ask you. I've definitely got a problem with Harry Potter, who's taken over from Jodie today. How do you spell Maureen, Maureen?
M-A-U-R-E-E-N.
He's written M-O-R-O-N, which is moron, which I think is absolutely disrespectful. Honestly, God, these youngsters nowadays, Mo, no respect at all, have they?
No, they haven't.
What you got for me, darling?
Right. Well, I'm 85.
Are you?
And I went to school for a short while in Dartford in Kent at the end of the war. That would be about 1947, waiting for my father to be demobbed.
So you'd have been 7 or 8?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when we lived with my aunt in Dartford,
yes,
and went to school in the morning on a bus. And the girl that took us, the older girl that took us, took myself and a little boy called Michael.
This is brilliant, by the way.
Short grey trousers.
Short grey trousers, Michael had, yeah?
Yeah.
Was he weedy and scrawny?
Well, he was quite a lot smaller than I was. I know that much.
Right.
We are talking quite a long time ago. But many years later, I read an article and found out that he'd lived in Denver Road in Dartford. And I rang my cousin and I said, wasn't Mrs. Jagger living opposite us?
You went to school with Mick Jagger, didn't you?
I did.
This is unbelievable. You're 85 and you went to school with Mick Jagger. I wish you were like 60 and I could have said, did you meet him after you left school? I could ask if you... Oh, this is a brilliant story. So Mick Jagger was a weedy little git with little grey shorts on, was he?
He was, yes. And I went across the road with my aunt to see his brother in Pram just after he was born. I think his name was Stephen.
Stephen Jagger? Yeah. I don't know. Can I ask you a question? I love your generation. Don't take this wrong. It's like talking to my mum. Not that I can, because she's no longer here. But on a serious note, can I ask you? We sit here every day and we talk about, what's happened to the world and this country seems to not be looking after its own and wiping the backside of the rest of the world, and you talk about policing and people being jailed for tweets. You're 85 years of age and I have huge respect for your generation. What's your view of what's going on, Maureen?
I'm absolutely terrified for the future and I won't be here to see it.
For your kids and for your grandkids you worry about the future, right?
That's right, yes.
Do you ever get to a point where you think I'm better off out of this? When I'm no longer here, I won't have to listen to this rubbish.
No, I haven't got to that stage yet.
Oh, we love you. Mick Jagger's schoolmate. You're the best person ever to have rung the show. We love you, Maureen. Come on wherever, yeah? And how's Skegness? Is it all right?
Yes, it's a bit dull and miserable at the moment, but yes, it's okay.
Skeggy, do you walk on the beach?
No, not anymore. I used to. On my mobility scooter, yes, I go along the...
I bet you do. I bet you knock people out. Did you vote for Richard Tice?
Yes.
Did you? Brilliant, that's one. We love you. Maureen on a mobility scooter, live from Skegness, I love this show, went to school with Mick Jagger. We love you, Mo, thanks for tuning in. Joanna from Salisbury, she said, my older sister used to ice skate with Anita Harris, singer and actress, and she was in the... do you remember her? Anita? Rubbish. Let's go to London. Grace, you're on Talk. Hello.
Hi. I'm just thinking about school people now, and one of the people I was privileged to go to school with was Alex Irons, who does your sports sometimes.
Sorry?
You were talking about people that people went to school with.
Alex Irons? Who's Alex Irons?
He's one of the sports presenters on your channel.
Is he?
Yeah.
Never heard of him in my life, sorry, but there you go. Right, very quickly, because Sam Ellard, who I have heard of, we're waiting for him. Grace, you've got 1 minute, go.
I am very concerned about the people in Gaza, but I'm also really concerned about the people in Sudan and the people in Congo and people in parts of Mozambique and people in other parts of our world. And I don't understand why Greta and others only talk about the people in Gaza. I just don't get it. I do think that we should really, really care about those people who are in terrible, terrible need. But all of the emphasis, all of the attention is on just one place. And Greta said that there's silence about what's going on in Gaza.
Greta said Greta's 22. Greta, I'll tell you what I believe people like her do. They dilute whatever message needs to be heard. I just think that there are too many activists, genuinely I mean this, who jump on whatever bandwagon they think is, at that moment, the most important, popular, politically correct one to do. And I think, Grace, that's the problem. I take your point. I don't mean to be quick, but I have to shoot on simply because of the news. What is it? 11 minutes to 6. This is Talk Drive.
In a plastic. This all comes back to a dangerous idea, and believe me, it's infected this country too, which is we don't enforce certain laws because we've decided that we just don't like them. I don't want to hear a jip, not a whiff of anything out of anybody that says, oh, I'm a rule of law, defend the rule of law. If you defend the rule of law, you defend the right of these officers to go into work, to do their job in difficult circumstances, to enforce the law, and the laws of the land say you can't break into the country illegally.
These lawyers' costs are not included in this 4.7 billion, and the 4.7 billion figure, Mike, includes the hotel costs. It also includes the kind of the landlord accommodation that the likes of Serco will pay you 5 years, all your rent, all your kind of utilities and stuff. So it's a staggering amount of money, and as you point out there, so 600,000 people
across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I now have to do a competition read on Talk Drive. My name's Jeremy Kyle, and we are giving you the chance to win FIFA Club World Cup tickets, final tickets, thanks to our friends at DAZN, because they're like, damn nice to us. Here's everything you need to know.
Hi, it's Jim White here. Here at TalkSport, we're gearing up for the Club World Cup in the United States. And to celebrate, we've got 2 tickets to the final in New York on July the 13th to give away. We'll sort flights, accommodation, and give you $5,000 spending money to spend however you like. 18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. All you have to do to enter is text the word football to 83338 by the 13th of June at 11 p.m. and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission or send your name and number by post to Club World Cup Final Prize Draw, P.O. Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on June the 18th.
This is a TalkSport limited competition run on TalkSport Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Tick. It is going to be amazing. You could win FIFA Club World Cup final tickets thanks to our friends at DAZN. Mike Graham there providing some clarity at the end. 0344 419 1000. Push the button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
I'll tell you somebody who should be in Jim White's chair and Andy Goldstein's chair, a man who I believe is the future of TalkSport. Sam Ellard, a very good afternoon. How are you?
JK, good afternoon to you. How are you?
I'm all right. Are you going to ask me the obvious thing? There I was, taking my children swimming on Saturday. The reliable, responsible dad is peeing down outside. My phone goes to say, kids, hold on a second, please don't drown. Ryan wants me. Ryan goes, I'm with my mates in Margate, which is brave, obviously, because Margate, have you been there? It was closed. No. Anyway, he's rung and he's gone, do you have any idea what could win the derby? And I went, yeah, Lambon each way 10-1, have a crack. They all backed it. They all made money. I didn't have a bet because I'm looking after the kids. He didn't even buy me a packet of biscuits, Sam.
No, well, firstly, great tip, JK. I need to be texting you more often for the racing.
Obvious to me when the rain came, ruling court taken out, not going to get the extra half a mile. Lambourne, a confirmed dour stare that likes the soft ground, ploughed from the front, wins the derby. Bob's your uncle.
I think if Ryan's got anything about him, JK, he should take you out for a lovely meal. Not a meal, maybe, but yeah, a drink or a box of chocolates.
I don't want to be seen in public with Ryan. Don't worry about that.
No, he's a good lad, Ryan.
No, he's not. How are you, my friend? Where are we going to start? See, he's written down Spurs close in on Frank as next head coach, and I went, what, Frank Butcher? What, Frank Spencer? No, Thomas Frank. Do you genuinely think, because I think it's about time he got a big job, I think Thomas Frank is a great coach. I think he'll be a good fit for Spurs, but I read over the weekend, on a serious note, much disaffected sort of misery amongst the Spurs squad about how Postecoglou was treated.
So on Thomas Frank, I completely agree with you. I think he's a really, really good coach. I think at Brentford, they've punched above their weight for the last couple of seasons. I think he's the sort of coach who improves players, gets the absolute best out of his squad. I think tactically, he always sets his teams up really well. We've taken them from the Championship into the Premier League, and on a limited budget with limited resources over the past couple of seasons, they're always in and around mid-table. I think he's an excellent coach, and I completely agree. I think Spurs could do a lot worse than Thomas Frank. On Ange Postecoglou, we haven't spoke since the sacking on Friday. I think it was the right move. I know the Europa League win was massive. I completely get that. But when you look about moving forward and the man to take the team into the Champions League, Spurs over a 38-game Premier League season finished 17th in the Premier League. Yeah. And game in, game out in the Premier League, you see them getting beaten in the same way, playing open, expansive football. And I'm just not sure that despite a great Europa League run, how that man could take that team forward.
I don't disagree with you, and it's actually really interesting, though, because I read over the weekend that there are 2 or 3 Premier League clubs already looking at Postecoglou. Did you read that?
Yeah, I've read that. I mean, you know, I think, well, do you know what? It's almost like the first team that sacked their manager next season in the Premier League, you know, they might think, hey, hang on a minute. And so I could see him getting another job. But yeah, listen, one thing I think is very clear is that, you know, from everything that's happened over the last couple of days, it's clear that Ange had a real good relationship with his players. And look, one thing that should never be forgotten, that man's always going to be allowed to walk down Tottenham and he'll never have to buy a pint in his life, because what he did for that club, winning that trophy, will never be forgotten. But I just think over a 38-game league season, coming 17th, being beaten in the same way week in, week out, I can see why Spurs wanted to change. And I like Frank.
Great. England chasing down 197 yesterday. Whitewash against the West Indies. I mean, doing fantastically under Harry. But what's that? 5 wins out of 5, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, exactly that. 5 wins out of 5.
Who told you that Harry Brooke would be the next England captain a year ago? Oh, who was it?
Jeremy, it was you, wasn't it? You've seen Harry Brooke, and he's off to an absolute fly. Hey, listen, sterner tests are going to come for England. We know that. Going to be what's put in front of you. And yesterday had to chase down 197, which was a decent total to chase down. So many batsmen looking good form. Duckett and Butler set the chase up. And then something England have done, Tom Banton, always been an opener, have asked him to bat a 6. Really? Well, yeah, he smashed 30 off 11 to get England over the line. Everything he's done so far, whether it's to open with Jamie Smith, tick, it's working. To bring back Liam Dawson, tick, it's working. To turn Banton and Jacks into openers, into finishers, tick, it's working. So far, so good.
Brilliant. Finally, French tennis. I'm not a massive tennis fan, but that game, Sinner, aptly named, he's a drug taker, wasn't he? The man that took drugs or failed a test. Alcatraz, it was the Alcatraz. It's a joke. Unbelievable 5-set game of tennis yesterday. Even I was inspired, although I don't like the French Open, because if I played in my nice white shoes, they go all orange with that horrible clay. Messy.
Yeah, do you know what? Yesterday, a genuinely amazing game of tennis. Alcaraz coming from 2 sets down, saving 3 championship points.
You're waving your hand again.
Say again?
3 championship points set down. You get very demonstrative. It's great. Crack on.
No, but come on. Yes, it was a special game of tennis. I mean, to come from 2 down, save 3 points. He was 5-3 down in the 4th set. Came back to win that and ended up winning in the 5th set. When it was 6-6, he ended up winning 10-2 in the tiebreaker. 5th major title for Alcaraz, which is quite remarkable. It's the first Grand Slam final between the 2 dominant players on the tour, and I think it's fair to say, JK, we're going to see a lot more to come in the following years.
Excellent. Emma Raducanu still injured. Sam, thank you very much indeed.
Leave Emma alone, man.
What? Oh, she's won a game of doubles with Katie Bolter, which means that she won't have to hit the ball because her back's hurting. What?
A Raducanu Wimbledon run is coming. Mark my words. The Raducanu at Wimbledon. Here we go.
What? She might get to the 2nd round or something. Anyway, Sammy, are you working tomorrow, or are you going to just shun us?
No, I'm going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Good man, you learn your money. The legend that is Sam Ellard, back tomorrow on Drive with more sport. 0344 499 1000. That's the number for Drive. Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, next on Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, hour 3 of Drive. For Monday, this is Talk. We're live across the UK. I wish you could share what happens in the studio. Mozzie's just walked in, free from her holiday in the Maldives. No, where was she? Mauritius? Bali, nearly. Well done. All over her Instagram. Fantastic, but not a sign of the husband-to-be. Harry Potter, who's illiterate and is in for Jodie, who's having her legs shaved with a strimmer. He's taking your calls on 0344 499 1000. Ryan, he's just recovering from his hangover that he got because he got the Derby winner from me, got drunk. And Amy just sits there smiling, trying to hit the buttons at the right time. It's a lovely, lovely view of 19... What's say 19 for? 2025 at all. 0344 499 1000. Graham Short, I think you're a liar. I mean, I don't know. I was at school with members of Black Sabbath, ELO, Wizard and Jasper Carrot. I've met and worked with many A-listers. I'm apparently the biggest name dropper of all time. I'm on my way to Cambridge now to give a talk in front of thousands of people about my wonderful life. Jem, Jezza, can you give my girlfriend a shout out? It's her birthday. Her name is Gemma. Happy birthday, Gemma. Is that right? What have I become? Why don't you tell her yourself? Why are you using me? Why do I have to say happy birthday? I'm joking. Very happy to do it. Eddie Lee. Jezza, you should have asked Maureen. See, there's always one. You should have asked Maureen if she'd ever snogged Mick Jagger, Eddie from St Albans. She was 8 and he was 7. You deranged human being. I mean, I know St Albans. Never mind. 0344 499 1000. This is great, this next call. Although she's in Cyprus, right? Mary, you're on Talk Drive. Hello.
Hello, Jeremy. How are you?
Well, let's just calm it down a bit. I might have a breakdown. Let's just rewind that a little bit and start again. Calm. Hello, Mary. How are you?
I'm very well, Jeremy. Thank you. How are you?
That's not happening, is it? I'm very well, darling. Thanks for phoning the show, because if you hadn't, I'd have been wondering how you were. What's going on?
Well, my sister-in-law...
Yes?
Taught Theresa May at school when she was about 11 or 12.
Well, your sister-in-law should have done a better bloody job, because she turned out to be crap at the Prime Ministership thing, didn't she? Did she really teach her? That's brilliant. What was Theresa May like as a student or a school pupil?
I have to be careful, really.
You're in Cyprus.
She didn't sort of sparkle, I gather.
You've got political immunity in Cyprus, so she was... What you're trying to say in a roundabout way is you can't understand how somebody that thick ended up as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that I don't think she stood out in the class.
Well, she didn't stand out when she was Prime Minister. Now, how's Cyprus? Nice and warm, because it's dull and overcast here in England.
Well, yes, we're getting into the hot now. It's about 32.
Brilliant. Right. And are you living there or just on holiday there?
Oh, we've been here 25 years. We left when Tony Blair was there. We couldn't stand him any longer.
Brilliant. Great. OK, well, if you do want to come back, just go to Calais and get a dinghy. You'll get up in a hotel. You won't have to buy a house. Thanks ever so much for coming on. It's very nice. God bless you in Cyprus. God, I sounded like the Pope then. 0344 499 1000. I still can't get over visions of the new American Pope. We're just standing on the balcony going, "Yo, how you doing? How's Sunday amongst all you lovely Catholics?" Where did that accent come from? What is the matter with me today? 0344 499 1000. My next guest is, well, I consider him a friend. He probably doesn't like me. Former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. He should do, because I saved his career. Conservative MP for the Ribble Valley for longer than most of us have been alive. Now just running around the United Kingdom and Europe and the world, just enjoying sunshine, glasses of rosé and trying to write a book. Nigel Evans, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Jeremy, I'm fantastic. Yeah, you got me. Listen, you've gone from Cyprus back to the United Kingdom, which is a rare thing. When you interview me, normally you're going from the United Kingdom to somewhere in the world. But don't worry, tomorrow I'll be in Sweden.
Right, hold on. Now, over your left shoulder, where's your left shoulder? Point.
Right, now, I'm going to say this. I am literally taking no responsibility for any books over my shoulder.
There's a red box there. I thought it was your ex-ministerial red box.
I wish. I'm staying at the home of Colonel Bob Stewart, and we all love Bob. Absolute war hero. And he has threatened to put some odd books over my shoulders at some stage when I'm doing one of these interviews.
Yeah.
So don't look too carefully, people.
Well, I am looking. We're all looking now. We're all definitely trying to find something that will nail you. Nigel, Welcome to the show. God, where do I start? Let's start with the obvious. Winter fuel U-turn. I mean, listen, I'm old enough to know that governments make U-turns. I'm old enough to know that the argument should be that you should get it done as quickly as possible. And I'm also, despite the fact I'm nearly 60, I remember a year ago when this was first announced, saying on this show, this is political suicide. This is a poll tax moment in a heartbeat. Now, presumably, the May elections, rumblings from the backbench, Starmer and Richard III have decided that now is the time to backtrack. Would I be wrong to suggest, though, and this isn't pro-Tory or pro-reform, this is just fact, the British people are more switched on than ever. They're gonna go, well, you did it in the first place. That tells us everything about your character and what you really like underneath.
Yeah, you've got it absolutely right. And don't forget, it's only a partial U-turn because they took it off all pensioners and now they're giving it back to some. And so I remember listening to Keir Starmer and Richard III when they were saying that, well, we don't want to pay it to millionaires. Well, I can understand that. But Jeremy, it's anybody earning over £35,000, which is way off being a millionaire, are now not going to get it. So we are where we are. They got it completely wrong. They said that they were going to stand with the pensioners and they didn't. The first act that they did was to take off the winter fuel payments from all pensioners. And you're absolutely right. They got hammered in local elections. They get hammered in local by-elections every week. And then, of course, you had the Hamilton by-election, which they think somehow is a great success. I don't think winning that vote on 30, I think it was under 32% of the total share of the vote, is a great success because the SNP and Reform are breathing down their necks.
Let me jump and ask you something, because we're talking about the facts of this. So more than 3/4 of pensioners will receive the winter fuel payment this year now, Richard III says, in a major U-turn. If you think I'm being rude about Rachel Reeves, go and have a look at a picture of Richard III and you'll see exactly what I mean. The Chancellor says pensioners in England and Wales with an annual income of 35 grand or above will now below will now be eligible. So I had a call earlier and I was waiting for you because the Treasury, I emailed them and they ignored me. I mean, it's a bit like HMRC with flowers, ribbons in their hair. Man called and said, I'm 68. Because of the way that my pension is, I have to still work. I'm working 37.5 hours a week and I'm earning nigh on £30,000 a year. My pension that I get takes that figure to £41,999. Does that mean, he says, that I lose my winter fuel allowance? Does the pension get included with wages? Do you know the answer at all, Nigel?
I have a sense that the answer is yes, he's not going to get a penny. It's going to be total income, and that's how HMRC are going to claw it back. As I understand it, it's even more bizarre, Jeremy, because they're going to give this extra 300 quid to everybody.
Yeah, I read this.
And then anybody over 35 grand is going to be clawed back at the rate of 100%.
But how does that work administratively? Why? That's just making more work and more inefficiency, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I gave the perfect solution, which was to give the 300 quid to every pensioner in the country and then just add it onto the pension and then allow those who are earning at the 25% level, it gets taken back, clawed back at 25%. You're basically paying tax on it. And what they've done is they've made it hugely complicated. They've got it completely wrong. It's red faces all round. And don't forget, every pensioner was put through the purgatory of this winter without the £300. So people aren't going to easily forget this U-turn. They are not. They're not going to be bought off with their own money.
Well, it's really interesting. The only lefty that I allow on the show is Matthew Talbot. He's a great guy and increasingly love having him on. And he literally sat here on the show last Wednesday. He was a Labour advisor. He's not been shunned by Labour, but they're not very happy with him because he speaks the truth. He'll say, she's a goner. Richard III is gone, irrespective of anything now. That's what he says, right? I've had other people on stage. James Price said that ideologically, Starmer and Reeves are so entwined now that one cannot survive with t'other. That was good English. And look what happened with Liz Truss. You have to be very careful in terms of getting rid of your Chancellor. What's your view on this?
No, I suspect he would be able to get rid of her because there are so many of these 400-plus Labour MPs who feel so angry. Don't forget, many of them will have had to have gone back to their constituencies following the local elections and to say sorry to their councillors who all lost their seats. So I think that there's irreparable damage being done to the brand of the Labour Party since they made that huge decision. But it's not just that one. It's also what they've done to the WASPy women. It's what they've done to hospitality businesses with the national insurance increase. And it's also what they've done to the farmers on the inheritance tax and other small businesses. So there's a huge... And then people look at what they did with the Chagos Islands and go, what the heck is that? That's cost £30 billion. I've got to go... And the real problem with all of this is every time I see Rachel Reeves now, she's throwing money at things when she said she didn't have any money to do this. And it's almost like an alcoholic going into a Majestic wine shop with somebody else's credit card, but I'm afraid we're going to have to pick up the bill for her hangover.
Can you imagine a Tory MP using an alcohol analogy to this? That's brilliant. That's my favourite. Right, Nigel Evans in the house of a friend. Front page of the Sun today. Brilliant. Insane. £4.7 billion is the cost of housing and caring for migrants in hotels in the United Kingdom. And this was proven today to be the equivalent, Nige, to the total tax contributions of 582,000 working men and women, which is the equivalent of Manchester. Now, can we just... I know we all sit here and we're appalled and we're like, what are the answers? This is beyond an issue that concerns people. This is, I think, central to everybody, morally, politically. This is getting to the point, and I really feel this, I've said it repeatedly to you and to other people, whereby people are so upset that they're at the back of the queue, that the people are so upset that they feel that they're being shown no love, consideration, compassion, that actually you can come to this country and be treated better than people who have lived here all their lives. I'm not saying that people will take to the streets. I'm not saying that Reform will get elected. What I'm saying is, I don't know, you're not in politics anymore, but I would say to any politician, you lot do not give me the impression that you understand the severity and the depth of anger the British people are feeling about this.
Yeah, you've only got to talk to anybody in any pub, quite frankly, going back to alcohol for a second.
Yeah, there he is again.
Jeremy, everybody knows that this is totally unsustainable and it is unfair. That bill of almost £5 billion, that is the equivalent of over 2p cut in income tax. And we all know, because of all the extra spending that Rachel Reeves is doing currently, that this is all going to have to be paid for by somebody. The markets just won't let her carrying on spending without it becoming within some sort of framework. And so this £4.7 billion. And the real problem is, Jeremy, that it's 4.7 billion now, but it's going to be 5 billion very shortly, and then 5.5 and then 6 billion pounds, because the number of people coming into the United Kingdom illegally on those boats is increasing every day. And what? Yvette Cooper? She's blaming the sun. The weather's too good. Really.
I would say this, and because I know with you you're always honest and you don't hide behind anything, which is why we will always love having you on, there will be Tory MPs who will be rejoicing in the fact that this problem has got worse under Labour. But the Tory government was in for 14 years, and I've had thousands of people say to me that the Tories, whether you throw Rwanda at me or not, and it should have been quicker or sooner or whatever, but they didn't sort this. In fact, the situation got worse and worse over those 14 years. Yes, Blair started it. Yes, crushing the boats the gangs isn't obviously the answer, but you had 14 years, and when you look at it, when you look at how big a problem this is, that must be a source of embarrassment, Nige, truly.
Yeah, you probably can see under my tan that I am really going red, because I literally am. I am apologetic by the way that we dealt with this issue. In fact, we didn't deal with the issue. It's as simple as that. It got worse and worse and worse, and then Rishi caved in right at the end. He couldn't send anybody to Rwanda and decided to throw it all away. He gave up in the end without even sending a decent... I think it was like 3 people got to Rwanda and we had to pay them to go. It was impossible. And so we've let people down badly. And I'll say this now as well, that Kemi thinks she's got several months grace before she can dream up some policy. And the reality is she hasn't got the luxury.
Well, now this is really interesting you're saying that, because I've been saying to you for 6 months that if I hear one, I don't from you, which is why I have you on, if I hear one more Tory say to me, What Kemi's doing is she's taking stock and she's looking at a review and she's trying to work out where she went wrong. You went wrong because you didn't bloody well do what you told the British people you were going to do. That's the point. And I mean, she's come out about this burqa thing, but there is still, we can talk about reform, there's still no meat on the bone. And I think the British people are going to go, so we elected a Labour government who went, well, the Tories are responsible, let's crush the gangs. And now it's even worse. And the Tories are going, well, let's vote us in, because somebody surely has to stand up and I'm not a politician, and go, right, so if we got the Navy involved and we turned these boats back, if we made Britain less attractive by laying out the red carpet to anybody and everybody, if we stopped giving money to the French, and if we left the ECHR, irrespective of what the blob and the establishment said, it might be a start. 53 million, did I read, or some ridiculous figure on human rights lawyers, apparently, in the last year, I read in some newspaper today, given to people who've never paid a penny, paid for by us taxpayers, to come up with some obscure reason why they should stay in this country and rip us off to the detriment of people who have lived there. Make any sense, Nige?
No, it doesn't make any sense. And I think the real problem, when I've read between the lines as to why we're going through this particular process of a peer-led review into what should be the response to stopping the boats and the European Convention of Human Rights. I think the simple thing is this, that even as dwindled as the Tory party is with 121 MPs, it's still a broad spectrum. It's a broad church of people. And if Kemi was tomorrow to come out and say, right, that's it, we've had enough, we're leaving the convention. And don't forget, the United Kingdom's not the only country who think that it's broken. Then all of a sudden, some of these on the left wing of the Tory party are going to turn on her. Well, I've got to tell you, part of the real problem as to why we lost so many Tory MPs at the last election is because they were telling Rishi that he couldn't do the things that he needed to do. And now they're no longer members of Parliament. And if Kemi carries on listening to the people on the left of the party who say that you've got to be very cautious about where and how we proceed on this particular matter, then they're not going to be members of Parliament either. If they don't like the direction in which we need to go, then leave the Conservative Party.
It's really interesting. I have a friend, I won't get into too much detail, who years and years ago was offered a big job in broadcasting, and basically this particular place had like 7 bosses in 7 years. And anybody that had tried to move away from whatever the norm was fired. And we talked long and hard over several months. And I said, you have to go with your gut. And if it's unpopular and you get fired, you have to be able to look in the mirror. With Kemi Badenoch, and he did, and he stayed for 7 years. When I look at Kemi Badenoch, I completely agree with you. If you try to be all things to all people, you end up a bit like Starmer, I thought, during the election, when it was so broad church, the tent was so wide. He had that woman, Natalie Elphicke, from the far right in Dover, and some woman, ludicrous, right? And I remember saying at the time to you, in fact, God, this is going to end up with him having to please everybody. I need from whoever it is, it might be Nigel, it might be Kemi Badenoch, it won't be Keir Starmer, I think it'll be Nigel, I hope it will be, but I don't know, is somebody to say, and I keep saying it, I can't put it in any other words, this is what I'm putting in front of you. There'll be dark moments, bad moments. I'll mess up occasionally. I'll put my hands in the air, a bit of a journey. There'll be criticism. I've got a pair big enough to stand up to these people. I'm doing it for you. Vote for me if you do, I promise you. And you look at America and you look at what's happening in LA, and the left are up in arms because these poor migrants have been, they're going to be forcibly removed. That's what Donald Trump put in front of the American people, and that's what the popular vote voted for. And it doesn't matter about some loony lefty on The View and Whoopi Goldberg jumping up and down saying he is the devil. The fact of the matter is democracy is there. I would love, I'm not talking about, bring you to Zia Yusuf, who in 5 days resigned and came back since I finished the show last Wednesday, but he's come out today and promised mass deportations if Nigel Farage became Prime Minister. Now, that is very Trump-esque and is quite ramped up from what was being said. You can see that happening, and you can see the British people wanting that to happen. Do any politicians have the balls to do it, Nigel? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, clearly Zia Yusuf has come out with this policy today, and I think he's absolutely spot on. I agree with him 100%. If there's anybody that is illegal in this country, then they need to be removed. It's as simple as that. They came in here illegally, and they should be removed as quickly as is possible. And if it means pulling out of that European Convention, then we need to do it. If we need derogations, then we need to do it. You can pull out of the convention, Jeremy, and bring in a British Bill of Rights, which protects the rights of all citizens outside of the European Convention. We can do all of this, but we shouldn't be having a European court saying that somebody who illegally entered the United Kingdom, never mind the Dublin Convention, ignoring all of that they came through several safe countries to get to the UK, then they should be able to be removed from this is what the British people want, and we need to get on with it. And Kemi really does need to, and I think this is where her heart is. I absolutely believe that she thinks that we need to stop the boats, that we need to ensure that those who are illegally here need to be removed. And I would say to the Tory MPs who are holding her back, you do it at your peril, because in 4 years' time, you'll be gone.
It's always great. Do you know, whenever I have you on, people say, what a shame he's no longer in Parliament, but we love having you on the show. And my regards to Colonel Bob. Many a glass will be for sale. There'll be several glasses of red tonight. Good to have you on, Nigel. Speak to you very soon. 6:23. We're live across the UK. This is Talk Drive, here until 7. Kev O'Sullivan's Political Asylum is here from 7. Petrie, she's a dish. Hoskins, you see what I did? She's on from 10 o'clock. Hello to Graham in Birmingham, Jizz. This is the man who says he's been to school with lots of famous people. He said, I'm giving a talk locally to a women's eye group. I also have worked with Stephen Fry, Kim Kardashian, Uri Geller, Ronnie Barker, Neil Armstrong, Nigel Farage, and many more. I'm 79. I've met many famous people. Deal with it. Andy says, Jeremy Kyle on top. I've never said that. And Trevor Jenkins, good afternoon, Jazz. Brilliant. Do I look like a Jazz? Don't say a word. I went to school with Trevor Smith, Wayne Jinks and Vinnie Jones at Langbury in Watford. Trevor in Harrow. Is Harrow in Watford? I wish I could have put Ryan on. No, it's about a mile out. 6:24, drive time.
Get up.
Zia had been working 24/7, 7 days a week, and you know, like all of us, sometimes you want to take too much on, and you're just pushing on. And look, he was exhausted. He regrets, you know, his tweet. What Nigel's agreed with Zia is that he will focus on Doge. It is such a big opportunity to save money, to prove we can do it in these councils. I'm very focused on the pension side of it, where again there's huge sums to be saved. What we've got to show the good British people is that we can deliver.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 6:28. So much to tell you about. Honest to God, what a day. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk America with Tom Del Picaro. Did you like the way I did that? Tom Del Picaro, former chair of the Californian Republican Party. So much going on out there. Trump has deployed the National Guard to LA to curb unrest over his immigration raids. The decision has sparked fury from Governor Gavin Newsom. Or Newscum, as Trump calls him. He says he's suing the Trump administration over the move. Protests appear to have quietened down overnight after a third day of unrest. Mayor Karen Bass, this is the one who sold all the water, made so many cuts and then it burnt down to the ground because there wasn't any, urged protesters not to engage in violence and chaos. She's a demonstrably unimpressive person, isn't she? 0344 499 1000. We're going to go to London. I haven't spoken to her for a while. Georgina, you're on Talk Drive. What are you cooking for the family tonight, Georgie?
Well, they're having steak. I'm doing steak, but I'm in the middle of making butter. I've got the bread baking, and I'm.
You're making butter?
Yes, I'm making butter.
How do you make butter?
With whipping cream, yeah, and you get it in your urn, and you mix and mix and mix. You get really big muscles in your arm doing it, and when it separates.
Don't, Ryan. Don't, Ryan. Just can't. Don't, Ryan. Don't encourage her.
Steady on, this is a family show. When it separates, you've got fabulous homemade butter and the buttermilk that's there you can use for scones.
Scones? What's the world's fastest cake? Scone. See what I'm saying there? You say scones. You're posh. Do you get out the bath to have a wee?
Yes.
Do you? You're not naked today while you're speaking to us, are you?
Oh, now, I am going to stop this conversation right here. I rang to talk about... You put me off what I was going to say now.
I'll tell you exactly. I know why you rang, and I'm going to read this out because there's so much anger about this. Dawn French, and I love, by the way, Dawn French, and I've loved all the things that she's been in. I thought Vicar of Dibley was world class. I thought she and Jennifer Saunders, but some controversy over the weekend. She sort of tweeted this sort of video where she said she was being sarcastic, or would you say flippant, or what's that word where you just try to be funny about the horrors of October the 7th, which of course were anything but funny. They were horrific, and of course it stampeded what's happening in Gaza. And many people like Dawn French use their platform to jump up and down and say they hate it and Israel, and that's fine. I'm not getting into the politics, but what it's raised is a massive debate this afternoon on how a woman who's a comedian can make a tweet like that, which is, you know, can be viewed as many as anti-Semitic. You think about what Lineker did. And yet Lucy Connolly, who's languishing in jail for 31 months, a mother of one, and somebody we've talked about a lot on this show, wrote, yes, offensive material about the Muslim community. The tweet was up for 3 hours. It was taken down. She's in jail. How come Dawn French is wandering around worried about how much money she's going to have lost through contracts?
Well, I think it's absolutely disgusting, the fact that Dawn French has used her platform to give her opinion. And this is all put out there, Jez, to sway people's minds on this situation. What happened was horrific. And for Dawn French to do that, I mean, I've always liked Dawn French, but I really do feel that she should stick to her comedic entertainment.
So let's take Lineker's view and have the discussion with you. Lineker's view was, and listen, he would say, just because I'm on the television, there's an argument for the BBC, but let's use Dawn French then. Why should she not have an opinion? I'm taking the opposite view. Why should she, just because she's on television or a comedian, not be able to say, I find what's going on in Gaza abhorrent?
Right, listen, Jez. If I want advice on how to be a comedian, I will go and see Dawn French.
Yeah.
And she can give me advice on that. If I want advice on how to kick a soccer ball, I will go and ask Gary Lineker. But I'm sorry, whereas these horrific things that have happened is concerned, yes, they are entitled to their view, but keep your views to yourself. don't put them out on social media. This is the wrong thing to do. We don't want to hear it.
Had a really interesting chat earlier. Don't know if you heard it. Jake Wallace-Simmons, who is the author and columnist, he wrote Israelophobia, the newest version of the oldest hatred, and what to do about it. And he made a really good point. He said in that video, or in the apology, Dawn French was saying, I was looking at the situation. I hate the suffering on both sides. But as he said, on that tweet, there was simply a Palestinian flag. I have not an Israeli one. I am not. Listen, from day one, I've talked about my Jewish friends. I've been very open about it. I hate what I see in Gaza. I also know that war is horrible. I also know that if you're going to eradicate something as vile as that terrorist cell that is infected and destroyed Gaza, it needs to be taken out. That doesn't mean I take any joy in what I see. But I'm not against people having an opinion. I don't care if people in the public eye have a different opinion to me. In fact, I welcome people having an opinion. That's important. What I hate is what I believe are increasing numbers of people in the public eye, whether it's Greta bloody Thunberg or bloody Gary Lineker, who probably don't even have an opinion, but they jump on a bandwagon that becomes huge, bigger and bigger and bigger, and say what I don't know. I never feel like so much of it is organic. I just feel like it's, you know, a social media message that maybe I'm doing them a disservice. I don't know. Maybe she feels really strongly about it. I don't know.
You're not doing them a disservice, Jez. Greta Thunberg needs to be taken back home. That girl has caused so much unrest with net zero, global warming. Honestly, she wants a bottom spanking and taken home by her
That's
parents.
the second person that said they want to spank Greta Thunberg's bottom today.
She's out of control, Greta Thunberg.
She went on a boat that was powered by diesel, love.
Exactly. She needs to go and have a bath, give her hair a good scrub and a brush, and get a job. Because, honestly, I've had it with Greta blinking Thunberg.
Yes. Georgina, I love you, possibly more than anybody else in the world. Thank you for being on. We'll go to Carmarthenshire. It's probably Cardiff, because the guy who's in for Jodie today, Harry Potter, is illiterate. Blatantly, earlier, he spelt Maureen, M-O-R-O-N, which spells moron. She was quite offended. Earlier, I said, oh, where are you? Wrong place. Stephen, where are you? Are you in Carmarthenshire or somewhere else?
Yeah, Carmarthenshire I'm in.
Well done, Harry. You got it right, my old son. Well done. Steve, what you got for me?
Yeah, I was listening to you just now about the immigration situation in this country.
Yeah.
I was watching Simon Reeves. He had a programme on the other night. I was watching it on
Who?
Simon Reeves. Simon. He goes around different parts of the world looking at their country.
Right.
Simon Reeves.
Okay.
Anyway,
Is he related to Rachel Reeves?
No, I don't think so.
Is he Richard III's brother?
No, I don't know. He's very good. He goes
I wonder if anybody went to school with Simon Reeves, because I've never heard of him. What?
I don't think I did.
Oh, right, okay.
Anyway, I was watching his program. I always like watching him. And
what's he on?
He's on. He was on Netflix. No, sorry, BBC iPlayer. I watched him on. So
that'd be a reason not to watch him then. The BBC.
Yeah, I know. But no, it was very good though. But he was. I like your program. I like watching. talkTV, and I watch it quite every day, really. And I think you're better than the BBC anytime.
Just drop the BBC because
good
it's
information.
crap,
Yeah, I know. At least you can talk sense,
Yeah, so Simon Reeves isn't that good then, as it turns out.
I was watching you just now with the speaker, the
Nigel Evans.
Yeah, I was watching it.
So basically, Simon Reeves and the BBC's not worth watching, is what I'm saying to you. Might as well just stick with talk. So.
Yeah, so I was watching you with the former speaker.
Nigel Evans.
About the amount of money we spend on immigrants in this country.
Well, it's great to have you on. Where are you from?
Where am I from originally?
No, yeah. Where are you from originally? Yeah.
Well, I was born in Chatham in Kent.
Were you?
Yeah. No, I lived in Bristol.
Do you think it's possible to do a rhyme that starts about Kent and finishes with Timbuktu?
No.
Tim and I went down to Kent and we met 3 women in a tent. There didn't seem a lot to do. Thanks for tuning in. That's Stephen on Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Brilliant. Welcome back. This is Talk Drive. Tom Del Bicaro, the former chair of the Californian Republican Party. We're having a few technical difficulties. I think somebody's thrown something at the wire, but we will get to him. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Hello to Karen in Newcastle, who's telling me off. She said, I was listening to Georgina, a very interesting call, and she was going to do a recipe. And what did you do? You cut her off. No, she talked about milk, for God's sake, or whatever. Was she making butter? It's not a recipe programme. It's a phone-in. Well, it's not even a phone-in show. It's a drive show. But by the way, he's waving. Well, he's not waving. But Kev O'Sullivan is here from 7 o'clock tonight. If you are able to keep it on Talk, please do. Kev through from 7 until 10. And the brilliant Petri... I mean, not that he's not brilliant, but Petri Helskins is here from 10 until 1. 0344 499 1000. I think there must be, the way it's going, a few little technical difficulties right now, but Ryan's raising his eyes. Listen, I don't care. They get so stressed. I could sit here and talk for 20 minutes. Complete rubbish. I spent my life talking complete rubbish, to be honest. 0344 499 1000. We'll do our absolute damnedest to get to you. Your texts can still, as we speak, come through. 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Are we having any luck with anybody? It's all going really well. Ryan gets really angry at this point, which makes me laugh even more, because he's like, it's very important that we look good. What, you're working with me, mate? Never looks good. So Tom Del Bicaro, his line's down from LA, and now the phone lines are in trouble, and nobody's getting anywhere. But it's okay. By the way, just also to tell you, and I should say this, and I say it all the time, and people say, why do you always promote Mike Graham? Simple, really. Brilliant show. Only way to start your day. Very important. Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. Now, if things work, we're going to Glasgow, which is in itself. Now, oh no, we're not going to Glasgow. Oh, we are going to Glasgow. No, we're going to Suffolk. Where should I'm going? I'll take your pick, right? A or B? Ryan, where do you want me to go? Right, we're going to A. Let's go to Suffolk. Rob, you're on Talk Drive. It works. Hello.
Hi, Jeremy.
Oh, for God's sake, I'm not having that. I'm not having that.
Yeah.
Well, when I say hello, could you try and sound as if you would rather not be with Greta Thunberg on a boat? Let's do it again. Rewind. Let's go to Suffolk. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, Rob. How are you? Is everything all right?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah,
good.
I've got an epiphany that I want to kind of give to you. There's something as simple as this. Whether you rent a house or whether you buy a house, you invariably have a doorbell or a knocker. You have windows. And I like to think that most sensible people would have them locked at night time, and that you wouldn't leave the windows wide open or the door wide open and go wandering into town. So why on earth do we allow that to happen to our own country, and no one's batting an eyelid about this? It's as simple as that to me, that no one in their right mind would leave their front... The insurance would be invalid as well.
Couldn't agree more. I know you're a new caller, and all joking apart, you're in Suffolk, and I appreciate the call. I tell you why I agree with you, and I think if you do this as much as we've done it here, and we continue to do it, because it is absolutely, I think, entirely what people want to talk about, because it's front and centre to most people's lives. It's almost as if we have politicians or, Rob, people running this country who either don't understand the depth of anger the British people feel, or are not interested in making anything better because they don't believe that they have an answer or they're going to be around long enough. I've always believed that a good politician would come to power with with something that he wanted to do, provide, and certainly if you're the Prime Minister, some sort of, policy plan, contract, whatever you want to call it. I've listened and watched people, look at today, the U-turn on the winter fuel payments. I'm not sure how many people nowadays stick to what they believe in. You look at Trump, and I use that as an example, but all I know is, from the bottom of my heart, this is not going away. It's not rocket science. I think that we are having the PISS taken out of us because we're allowing the world to... We're allowing the world to laugh at us, because people are not leaving war-torn countries. They are coming to the United Kingdom because we give more than anybody else. But, and this is my real point, Rob, to the detriment of our own people.
That's the thing that makes me angry, and I think a lot of lawyers are lining their pockets with this whole process, making themselves rich for the short term until they can bail and pass the buck to someone else. There's no accountability for anything. But again, if it was your own gaff, you'd expect to be burgled. You'd expect to be someone eating your cornflakes out of your cupboard, because but we're doing that to our own country. It just seems vulgar.
Do you not think we should turn? What do you think would happen? I'll throw this to you as a new caller. What do you think would happen if we turned boats back with the Navy? What do you think would happen?
I think it's the right thing to do, but I think that there'd be so many do-gooders out there worried about how that'd be perceived. I think everyone's so worried about how we're perceived on the world stage that they're actually blind to the opinions of what...
Here's the point, though. Do you know what's really good about the point you just made? We're so worried about, because Starmer's one of those left-wing human rights lawyers and all of his mates, let's give away the Chagos Islands, they're so worried about what the world thinks, but my point is, seemingly they're not worried what the British people are seriously thinking, and that's the point that I think will cause the end for so many politicians. But whilst they're arguing amongst themselves about what's right, I just think the British people are suffering, and a lot of people on the left disagree, and they go, oh, Jez, you don't know what it's like to live in a war-torn country. No, I don't. And I think this country, for the 8,000th time I've said this, showed exactly what it's all about with Ukraine, but those people were escaping Russian bombs. These men who leave their wives and children in apparent war-torn countries, travel through several safe countries and don't stay in France because that's a tent. They come here because they get a hotel and a credit card and a haircut and Pilates lesson, driving lessons. No, you think I'm joking? It's rubbish. It's rubbish. It's not right.
God forbid the French police get a wet foot trying to stop the boats going across the
Oh, no, well, we give them 500 million quid, you know. It's farcical. How did you find the station then? Or have you been listening for a while? It's this new caller.
Well, I've listened for a long, long time. I rang James Whale a long time ago, and I felt I just like listening. But I think every now and then you think, you know what, I've got to say something, because I think my point is a very simple one, but I think it's really applicable to what we're doing to the country. And it's, if you look at it and say, well, no, of course I wouldn't leave the gaff open. That's mad. I'd expect everything to be gone in the morning. Yeah, but that we're doing that to our own country, and it's as simple a thing as that. A real penny drop moment for me. It's like, but I think it's a really valid one.
Really agree. Really good to have you on. Thank you, Robin Suffolk. And while he was doing that, he mentioned a real good friend of mine, and I'm not going to get emotional, but you might have seen James Whale, who we know is ill. You might have seen his stuff online over the weekend. He's really struggling at the moment. And I wrote something. Listen, legend, pure and simple. The best of anybody I've ever met on this medium, right? It was the only reason I got into radio. We love you, Jay. Let's go to the phone. Let's go to Surrey. Sarah, you're on Talk Drive. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I just want to say, as a stroke victim, I had a ruptured brain tumour and a massive cerebellar stroke, which has left me disabled for life, in 2014. I've not even had a grab rail from the council. I've had no support whatsoever since that time. All I've had is the usual royal runaround. I am also an immigrant, albeit 50-odd years ago, from Zimbabwe, formerly Rhodesia. When I came to England, we did not get any support whatsoever from the government. We didn't get anything. And my parents had to, I was 3, my parents had to go to court to get us naturalised, my brother and I, because my father was born in India because his father was serving in the British Army at the time. And we had absolutely nothing. Both my parents were educated at private schools. I wasn't, but my parents were in England. My mother is British born. It is a disgrace what the immigrants did. And what I'd also add, while I'm ranting, if I may, is I've also worked abroad a lot. And what I would say as well, you try being abroad and getting any support whatsoever, because you would get nothing. And I'm talking Australia, the Far East and the Middle East. You would get absolutely nothing.
When you look, I really...
lived abroad many years ago, but nonetheless, I mean, you would not, I don't think you'd get anything. It does not.
When you, I'm so grateful for your call, and again, perspective is a great thing. When you, just in your own words, much better than mine, when you look at your own life, you look at what you've put in and the lack of support you've had, and then you look, and putting in is important in my humble opinion, coming to this country and contributing, thus absolutely being part of the very fabric. But when you look at what's happened in terms of where this country is at, and when you hear people saying, oh, that's really unfair about these migrants, and I know, and you know, that people who genuinely need, deserve and want it, and should have it, are suffering, what would you say to those trendy lefties who think that that's unfair?
Get real, frankly. It is a nonsense. I mean, excuse me, I was 3 when I came to this country, and I have worked for many, many years here. And I've obviously paid my taxes, my national insurance, and I have had absolutely no support whatsoever, not even the Grab Rail Council, since 2014. And I have, as I say, I've had a massive stroke, which has left me physically disabled tonight. And I look at these immigrants who come over, and I've done a lot of voluntary work in the past few years, in their effort to get back to work, so I must get back to work.
Listen, Sarah, I'm going to have to finish it there, not because I want to, because the sound, unfortunately, on the phone is awful. But a lady who said she came to this country, she worked really hard, she's been really ill, she's had very little support. And very much like we were talking earlier with people, you know, this country has always welcomed people, but surely the deal is, if you come here, contribute, and then you're part of the fabric. Don't spend your time taking advantage and or slagging off or trying to change the very thing you pretend you want to be part of. You see, I use the word pretend because sadly for many now, do they want to be part of Great Britain? No. They want to take part or take advantage of how much we do for everybody else. Again, I repeat what I said at the beginning of the show. I don't care about that if you're flush. But when you are skint and when you as a country can't even afford the interest on the payments, the debts on the payments that you've got, if you're then giving it out left, right and centre, I don't think that's right. This is Talk Drive at 10 to 7.
This all comes back to a dangerous idea, and believe me, it's infected this country too, which is we don't enforce certain laws because we've decided that we just don't like them. I don't want to hear a jip, not a whiff of anything out of anybody that says, oh, I'm a rule of law, defend the rule of law. If you defend the rule of law, you defend the right of these officers to go into work, to do their job in difficult circumstances, to enforce the law, and the laws of the land say you can't break into the country illegally.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Better late than never. We'll have read, seen and heard, all of you will, about the fact that Donald Trump has deployed the National Guard to LA to curb unrest over his immigration raids. We're delighted. We've only got 5 minutes. Tom Bicaro, former chair of the Californian Republican Party. Tom, how are you?
Good, Jeremy. Good to see you again.
Great to have you on. We haven't got long. So I live in a parallel universe, right? Because I crave somebody who stands in front of the British public and says, this is how I think we can improve your lives, people. And if you elect me, I'm going to do it even if I get opposition, be it legally, be it on the streets, because you voted for me. I love that, because here we don't do that. Here we're being overrun because we haven't got the balls to do anything. In your country, despite the fact that some people will disagree, old Donald, the orange man baby, has deployed the National Guard to LA because a bunch of lefty vegans or whoever are jumping up and down saying, oh, these immigration raids are unfair. And that dreadful Gavin Newsom scum, or whatever his name is, he's up in arms. But Trump's merely, unless I'm missing the point, Tom, he's doing what he said he was going to do.
Yeah, that is strange for politics in this millennium,
World.
is it not? And LA has a long history, of course, of not having law and order. And that's where we are today in California. Last cycle, less than a year ago, 70% of Californians voted for a tough on crime bill. And it hasn't been funded. And now you have something like this where he goes in to deport hardened criminals. These aren't easy, these aren't lighthearted raids. They're going after people with rap sheets. And you have all of this, and then they say, oh, we can take care of it by ourselves. But they're not.
And this is an interesting point for me. Kinsey, who lives in LA, Kinsey Schofield, our correspondent, royal correspondent, who's on the way over actually on a plane. She says that LA, and certainly if you read about it, in recent months is not what it ever was when I was out there, and there are people on the streets and there are problems, which would say that socially or economically, whatever's going on under that Democratic governor isn't working. And surely, why can't the people of LA work out that if you've got illegal criminal migrants taking, again, advantage of those services, that's going to perpetuate the problem?
Now, what's your... You said common sense. Isn't that what your radio station's about?
Hey,
no,
Donald Trump nicked it from
crime,
us.
And I've said this many times with police officials next to me. It's a matter of common sense. You tell them you're going to enforce the law. You put police officers out there. You jail people who break the law. You announce that you did this, and then you have a reduction. That's how it went with the border. He got elected, and the border crossings dried up without any additional forces being brought to the border.
Tom, imagine the
telling
shock.
people you're going to do this makes a difference.
Of course, imagine the shock, Tom, right? About a week after the inauguration, you'll love this, I was sitting here ready to go on air, and there was some footage from America, and it was from the Mexican border, and this woman was crying. I mean, I tell this story the whole time, and she was going, there's no point in going in, he won't let us in, and we'll be deported. And I remember looking at the screen and going, yes, because that's what he said he was going to do. And like it or lump it, through a democratic process, I think increasingly in this country, a lot of people would crave that. How bad is it in LA, just briefly? Is it calming down or not?
Yeah, the most recent reports is that it is beginning to calm down. We go through this in Los Angeles. I'm from Northern California. They have these spates of quote protests and peaceful protests. They're not, but yes, this will be enforced eventually. But what it does, the real lasting damage here will be to Gavin Newsom's attempt to run for president, because America knows California isn't run well and he shouldn't run the country.
Well, you look at that and you think about the problems with those terrible, terrible fires, and the footage of that mayor, whatever her name is, Karen Bass, is it, or Bass or whatever? She could hardly speak. I mean, she'd cut $50 million or something off the budget, hadn't she, for the fire service, to give it to what? LGBTQ plus march. I don't know what she gave it to. And then, of course, all these people suffered in the fire service. It's something you would think as a template for a democratically run estate, you'd look at that if you're the American people and go, no, priorities aren't right. And again, with Trump, a lot he says and does people don't like, right? But in terms of conviction, Tom, that shines through over this side of the pond, pal. It really does.
And people support, CBS poll, 54-46 people support these policies. So that's a big deal in a divided era that we have today.
Just very quickly, whilst I wasn't here at the weekend, big fallout between him and Elon Musk. Is that over? That was a massive. Are they going to make up, or is that it?
No, I think a year, a month from now, it'll be a minor memory. Elon Musk does a lot of business with the government, and Trump's the president. It'll blow over. Stay tuned. In the immortal words of some producers, stay tuned.
Good lad. Great to have you on. Tom Del Bicaro, former chair of the California Republican Party. Thank you so much indeed. Just explaining to us what it's like there in LA and saying, you know, like it or lump it, Donald J. Trump is the 47th elected president of the United States. And he said, I was looking at some details about this. The LA immigration raids come days after Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, the ICE, I love that, ICE man, recorded 100,000 arrests since Trump's return to the White House. 100,000 arrests by ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. Donald Trump simply doing what Donald Trump says. Listen, thank you so much indeed.